Chapter 453. No one had expected that there would be such a large-scale battle between geniuses in the immortal ancient world. The source of the battle between geniuses was the Archean royalty and other forces that were targeting the Jun family. Kaboom! Lights of all colors were rumbling, and the world was shaking. The waves that erupted from such a chaotic battle were indescribable, as if the world was about to be destroyed. Many geniuses found their own opponents and began to fight. Jun Lingtsang, I was just too lazy to use my trump card to fight you before. Now, let's try again. The Chilean sun stepped forward and pushed out his palm. Along with the purple aura, many Chilean phantoms appeared. As he blasted out, the sky was crushed. A loser is a loser. Today, you will die. Jun Lingtsang's tone was indifferent. The Archean royalty's actions had crossed the line. In that case, there was nothing more to say. The only thing left was to fight to the death. The rest of the Jun family sequence also clashed with Long Aotian, Feng Tiange, Feng Luofei, and other top geniuses of the Archean royalty. On the other side, Jiang Shengyi raised her hand and activated the power of her innate fetus. It turned into endless runes that spread under her feet. Jiang Shengyi was usually as quiet as a virgin, as otherworldly as a fairy from the Moon Palace. But now, she was attacking in anger. Her hair was fluttering, and she also burst out with a terrifying aura. After comprehending the ancestral stone tablet in the ancestral land of the Beauty Clan and many other opportunities, Jiang Shengyi's cultivation had reached the celestial god realm. She attacked Wang Ting with a palm full of anger. Jiang Shengyi, you may have the innate Taoist embryo, but you're no match for me. Wang Ting smiled and struck out with his hand. Mana surged out. As the young emperor of the Wang family, he was born with great fortune. He had never been defeated since he was born. His father even said that he had the bearing of a great emperor. Therefore, Wang Ting also had an invincible mind. He did not think that he would lose. However, Jiang Shengyi had an innate fetus, after all. It would take a long time to suppress Jiang Shengyi. On the other side, Jiang Luoli and Jiang Chuhan went up against the Saint's son and the three of them started fighting. The ancient freak of the Jiang family, Jiang Tianyang with the divine imprint king body, was stopped by Ao Guang, little sorcerer god, heavenly eye holy son, and Wu Shuo. Jiang Tianyang, it's impossible for you to help the Jun family, Wu Shuo said. His voice was as sharp and hoarse as a crow's. He and Jiang Tianyang were both ancient freaks, so they could completely block it. You all want to die. Jiang Tianyang held a divine seal in his hand. His aura was extremely powerful, as if a divine king had descended to the world. However, although he was an ancient freak in the late-stage heavenly god realm, the four people he was facing were also late-stage heavenly gods. It was indeed a little difficult to fight one against four. However, at this moment, Wang Chuan and Yi Yu stepped forward bravely. Since you dared to provoke my master, you should be prepared to die. Yi Yu's eyes were cold and his entire body was burning with the grand sun primordial fire. Wang Chuan didn't say anything, but the phantom of a wheel filled with the power of reincarnation appeared behind her. The young ruler of the beauty tribe, Li Qiushirei, also stepped forward. It was 4 against 4. Then let's try. Wu Shuo attacked first. As he raised his hand, countless pitch-black arrows shot out. They were enough to turn a mountain into a sieve. Jiang Tianyang also attacked. The divine seal in his hand vibrated, and rings of light spread out and collided with the arrows. Yi Yu pulled back the starfall bow of destruction. 9 stars in a row burst out. Wang Chuan also activated the power of the reincarnation sacred body. A reincarnation palm blasted out, as if it wanted to pull people into endless reincarnation. Li Qiushirei of the beauty tribe also attacked at the same time. Ao Guang, little sorcerer god, and heavenly eye holy son also attacked. A total of 8 terrifying Empyrean god realm geniuses collided. It was like a galaxy had exploded, and magic power rippled out in all directions. As for the remaining forces, Wu Mingyu of the Jin dynasty, Hua Shiqing of the Holy Spirit College, and the other geniuses of the ancient royal families were also tangled up in a melee. As Xiao Moxian saw this from the periphery, her large eyes also flickered. Then, as if she had made up her mind, Xiao Moxian also joined in the battle. Hey! The celestial demon cult's Xiao Moxian is actually helping the Jun family? Some geniuses were puzzled. The celestial demon cult didn't seem to have any relationship with the Jun family, right? Some people thought that this was Xiao Moxian's own idea. Little big brother Xiao Yao, I'm betting on you. Xiao Moxian thought to herself. She didn't help because she was kind, but because she wanted to befriend Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao had walked down his own great Tao. If he didn't die in the future, he would definitely become an unrivaled powerhouse. She actually helped. On the other side, Ji Qingyi was also watching the battle. Her eyes flashed with surprise. The human immortal cult and the celestial demon cult were enemies. As the saintess of the human immortal cult, she naturally paid close attention to Xiao Moxian's movements. However, after thinking about it, Ji Qingyi decided not to help. The entire scene was extremely chaotic. At the same time, the underworld prince was trying to think of a way to break through the array formation beneath the ground. Your turtle shell is quite hard. The underworld prince's eyes burned with the dark flames of hell. He suddenly raised his hand and a terrifying dark energy erupted. Finally, an iron claw burning with dark flames appeared in his hand, emitting a tyrannical fluctuation. This was the Underworld Prince's life supreme weapon, the Underworld King's Claw. That's a supreme weapon. Many geniuses' eyes trembled as they saw this. As expected of an ancient freak. He took out a supreme weapon so easily. That was a weapon that even a supreme would be moved by. The Underworld Prince held the Underworld King's Claw and slashed down. The purplish-black claw seemed to tear through the void as it crashed down. With a loud bang, the protective formation exploded into countless specks of light. Die. The Underworld Prince didn't even look at it. He activated his strongest ability with the Underworld King's Claw. Heavenly Demon's 18 Claws. The Underworld Prince blasted out 18 claw lights in an instant. They stacked on top of each other and blasted into the depths of the ground. Even an ancient freak would be severely injured or even killed by such a powerful move if he wasn't prepared. How dare you? Seeing this, the Jun family's echelon and the others were all furious. That was the last ancient freak of their Jun family. How could they let him die just like that? Jun Lingsang pulled off the black cloth covering his eyes. In an instant, the light from his polychoria split the heavens and the earth. Terrifying black light splashed out, almost burning down the sky. Jun Lingsang could now truly activate the terrifying power of the polychoria. Even the Chilean sun was caught off guard and was forced back, spitting out a large mouthful of blood. Jun Lingsang took a step forward and was about to go and help. At the same time, Long Outyen saw this and a cold light flashed in his golden dragon eyes. Naturally, he couldn't let Jun Lingsang come to the rescue. Divine Void Mark. Long Outyen used the ancient Void Dragon clan's inherited divine ability. As he waved his hand, dragon patterns flashed in the void, drawing a terrifying mark that seemed to be able to cut open the sky. Jun Wushuang, who was fighting against him, was immediately hit and coughed out blood. Although they were both in the heavenly god realm, Jun Wushuang's strength was still far from Long Outyen's. How did he become so strong? On the other side, Jun Mulan, who was fighting with Feng Luofei, saw this scene and secretly gritted her teeth. Previously at the immortal ancient Dao Lake, Long Outyen was like a clown in the hands of Jun Xiaoyao. He couldn't resist at all. Now that Jun Xiaoyao was no longer around, he began to show off. Jun Lingsang, you want to save the last ancient freak of the Jun family? You must be dreaming. Long Outyen made his move and blocked Jun Lingsang once again. At this time, the Prince of the Underworld also used his ultimate skill. One terrifying divine ability after another poured down in torrents. The whole ground was bombarded to the point that it was about to collapse. Seeing this scene, many of the geniuses who were watching from the outside swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The Prince of the Underworld's methods were really ruthless. After these powerful attacks landed, there would be nothing left of the ancient freak of the Jun family. It's over. The final result is that I am the winner. The Prince of the Underworld stopped with a faint smile on his face. He had once fought with the Jun family for the position of Sequence 0, and in the end, he won. However, just as the corner of the Prince of the Underworld's mouth curled up into a smile, a lazy voice suddenly sounded from the depths of the ground. Prince of the Underworld, your methods are still as low level as before. Chapter 454. This voice seemed to carry a hint of laziness. However, all the Sky Prides realized that the temperature around them had dropped to the freezing point. It was an extreme killing intent and coldness that had infected the surroundings, causing changes. This aura. Tao God stage. Many Sky Prides were shocked. The Tao God stage allowed one to have a deeper understanding of the Tao patterns. Every action and emotion could cause changes in the environment. After hearing the voice, the Underworld Prince's pupils shrank. His eyes were filled with coldness. Rumble. It was as if there were dragons moving under the ground. Then, with a violent rumble, a divine weapon suddenly rose from the ground. It was an umbrella, an incomparably huge umbrella. The surface of the umbrella was covered with countless Tao patterns. As it spun, it emitted rays of light. This umbrella was also a supreme artifact. No wonder. Many Sky Prides were enlightened. Logically speaking, no one should have been able to survive the Underworld Prince's powerful attacks. However, this supreme artifact umbrella had turned into a defensive weapon and blocked most of the power of the Underworld Prince's attack. That's the heavenly secret umbrella. Could it be that the one slumbering here is that person? In the distance, the ancient freak of the Ji clan, Ji Changkong, who was watching the battle, had a shocked expression suddenly surge onto his face. Who? Ji Qingyi was surprised. As an ancient freak of the Ji family, Ji Changkong had lost his composure. On the other side, the ancient freak of the Yi family, Yi Nantian, was also shocked. That's right. The heavenly secret umbrella. It really is him. Although Yi Nantian was not from the same era as that person, he had heard of the legend of the heavenly secret umbrella. Damn it. That person from the Jun family has not been killed by the Underworld Prince. Wu Shuo, the ancient freak of the Demon God Palace, was also shocked. The ancient freaks who knew a little about this were also shocked. As for the other Sky Prides, they were also shocked. In the past, the birth of some ancient freaks had not caused such a shock. What was the background of this ancient freak who was sleeping in the Jun family? As for Jun Lingtsang and the other sequence alchemists, they were slightly relieved. At least the ancient freak of the Jun family was still alive. As long as he was alive, there was still a chance. You're pretty tough, said the Underworld Prince coldly. A figure slowly stepped out from the depths of the ground. The young man had a head full of black hair, mixed with a few strands of white hair. He wore a loose white robe with a wine gourd at his waist. His appearance was also pillously handsome. His facial features were like jade, and he was almost at the level of Jun Xiaoyao. In his era, he could also make countless women fall for him. The handsome man slowly raised his hand, and the Tianji umbrella instantly shrunk and landed in his hand. He held the Tianji umbrella in his hand and had a wine gourd hanging from his waist. He looked relaxed and lazy. However, none of the ancient freaks present dared to underestimate this existence. The aura of the Tao divinity stage. Who exactly is he from the Jun family? Ji Qingyi's eyes rippled. Lying drunk on the battlefield. Lord Grim. Ji Changkong's tone was incomparably solemn. Following the birth of Lord Grim, the crowd went into an uproar. When some of the geniuses found out about Lord Grim's background, their eyes widened in shock. The former Sequence 0 of the Jun family. He had the strongest Renhuang physique. Yet another terrifying monster. Now, some of the onlooking geniuses finally understood why the Archean royalty and other forces wanted to destroy the younger generation of the Jun family. It was because this was 2F** King terrifying. Jun Xiaoyao alone was enough to make all the geniuses of the Huangtian mystic realm suffocate. If Lord Grim and other ancient freaks were added to the mix, then, how could anyone else walk on the Emperor Road? The Jun family might as well just take over the entire Emperor Road. The former Sequence 0 of the Jun family, Jun Wushuang, Jun Mulan, and other sequences were also excited. This is the Tao divinity stage. Even Xiaoyao hasn't reached this level yet, Jun Mulan thought to herself. Lord Grim, a legend, has awakened, Jiang Qianyang, who was fighting with Ao Guang and the others, murmured to himself. With the birth of Lord Grimm, the entire situation seemed to have changed. Lord Grimm raised his eyelids and looked at the Prince of the Underworld. He said calmly, "Prince of the Underworld, in our era, you are an opponent that I am somewhat interested in. But now, it seems that your methods are not worthy of your status. Mph, the winner takes all. Lord Grimm, you can't be that naive, can you?" The Prince of the Underworld said coldly. Lord Grimm didn't say anything. If he was that naive, he wouldn't have been qualified to rule an era. Lord Grimm, don't think that I don't know that your aura has yet to merge with the world. It is at its weakest. Coupled with the attack just now, you must have been injured. Trying to fool me is a bit ridiculous. The Prince of the Underworld saw through Lord Grimm's condition. So what? Killing you is not a problem. Lord Grimm raised his hand as soon as he finished speaking. The surface of the Tianji umbrella suddenly closed and turned into the shape of a sharp awl. The Tianji umbrella turned into a spear-shaped weapon, the Tianji spear. Lord Grimm, lying drunk on the battlefield, how many geniuses have returned? Prince of the Underworld, I will take your life today. Lord Grimm held the Tianji spear and took a big gulp of wine from the gourd at his waist. The aura of the Tao God realm exploded and swept across the sky. Countless Tao patterns swept out like a tidal wave. You are the one who should die. The Prince of the Underworld also activated his Underworld King bloodline. His aura rose rapidly and finally, he exuded the aura of a Tao God. 2 Tao gods. The geniuses were shocked. They had never seen such a great battle before. The 2 geniuses were engaged in a chaotic battle. However, everyone could see that the Prince of the Underworld was born. The Prince of the Underworld's aura had merged with the world and was extremely harmonious. He could also unleash his full strength. As for Lord Grimm, he had just broken through and his strength was at a low level. In addition, he had taken the Prince of the Underworld's attack head-on. It was impossible to say that he was not injured at all. Therefore, the Jun family was still in a disadvantageous situation. We have to end this battle quickly. We can't drag it out. Long Aotien's eyes flashed coldly when he saw this. If Lord Grimm was not taken care of, he would be a huge threat. Thinking of this, Long Aotien looked at Jun Wushuang. His feet suddenly flashed and as if he was shuttling through the void, his speed was extremely fast. In the next moment, he appeared in front of Jun Wushuang. What? Even Jun Wushuang was stunned for a moment and was very surprised. Long Aotien's speed was just too fast. Little did they know that Long Aotien had cultivated half a scroll of the spacebook and had a basic grasp of the power of space. Great Void Dragon Fist. Long Aotien threw out a punch. Accompanied by the shadow of the ancient Void Dragon, the entire space shook as if it could shatter the sky. Fart. Jun Wushuang spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated rapidly. His entire body crashed into the ground and he was severely injured. Then, he continued to charge towards Jun Mulan and the others. Let's take care of these sequences first. Then, we will form the 4 Spirits Heaven Punishment Array and trap Lord Grimm. Chapter 455. Long Aotien was determined to kill Lord Grimm. If Lord Grimm didn't die and joined forces with Jun Xiaoyao, Long Aotien would have no chance to rise. That was why he had to kill Lord Grimm first, then Jun Xiaoyao, and completely eradicate the combat power of the Jun family's younger generation. When the Emperor Road opened, it would be the stage for Long Aotien to shine. On the other hand, Wang Teng was thinking the same thing. He stopped fighting Jiang Shengyi. His body shook, and the shadows of the 4 spirits appeared around him. The true dragon extended its claws, the divine phoenix spread its wings, the Qilin stepped on the air, and the black tortoise suppressed the sky. A cold glint flashed across Jiang Shengyi's beautiful eyes as she felt the terrifying pressure. Her innate embryo of Taoism was powerful, but Wang Teng's methods were not that simple. The shadows of the 4 spirits immediately stalled Jiang Shengyi. Wang Ting also freed himself to deal with the remaining sequences of the Jun family. Wang Teng and Long Aotien were both protagonists of the world with great luck. If the 2 of them joined forces, even the sequences of the Jun family would not be able to resist. How dare you? Jun Lingsang's polychoria eyes shone brightly. However, he was once again held back by the Chilean child. Jun Lingtsang, your opponent is me. The Chilean child shook, and purple chi surrounded him. He had also activated his noble Chilean bloodline. At the same time, he performed the Chilean's great magic to hold back Jun Lingtsang. As for the others, they all had their own opponents. In addition, the number of people on the Jun family's side was already fewer than the Archean royalty and other enemy forces. Jiang Tianyang, Wang Chuan, and other ancient freaks were also held back by Ao Guang, Little Sorcerer God, Heavenly Eye Saint, and other young kings of the immortal ancient era. Therefore, no one could free themselves to help the sequences of the Jun family. Wang Teng and Long Outyen temporarily joined forces. Under their attacks, Jun Mulan, Jun Wanjie, and the others could not resist at all. Jun Wushuang was also severely injured by Long Outyen before. Under the bombardment, several sequences of the Jun family were sent flying while vomiting blood. It was not that the sequences of the Jun family were weak, but that Wang Teng and Long Outyen were both giants of the world. If the two of them joined forces, they could even fight against an ancient freak, let alone a current sequence. You bastards. When Xiaoyaro gets here, you'll be in for it. Jun Mulan was heavily injured and coughed up blood. She held the heavy sword in her hand and supported her body so that she didn't fall. She angrily rebuked. Long Outyen was as pathetic as a dog in front of Jun Xiaoyao, but now he was showing off. You. Long Outyen's eyes were cold. Forget it. It's more important to kill Lord Grimm first. Once he's dead, the outcome will be decided, Wang Teng said. Long Outyen nodded slightly. If he wanted to completely kill Jun Mulan and the others, it would take some time. What he couldn't afford to waste now was time. Soon, Long Outyen was free to join Wang Teng, Feng Tiange, and Feng Luofei in forming the Four Spirits Heaven Punishment Formation. At the sight of this, many sky prides from the outside world shook their heads. If the four of them joined the battle, then Lord Grimm would truly be in danger. Why hasn't the Jun family's son of God shown himself yet? It'll be too late by the time he gets here. The Jun family's son of God might be cultivating in seclusion somewhere. But to be honest, even if the Jun family's son of God comes, what can he do? No matter how strong he is, he can only break through to the celestial God stage at most. It'll be difficult for him to deal with Wang Teng, Long Outyen, and the others. Some people were discussing. While Long Outyen had suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of Jun Xiaoyao, it was apparent that he had undergone a metamorphosis, and his powers were no longer what they used to be. Wang Teng had never been defeated in the Immortal Ancient and had cultivated all the way to the Celestial God stage. Many people thought that Wang Teng alone was enough to fight Jun Xiaoyao. So even if Jun Xiaoyao came, he might not be able to deal with Wang Teng, Long Outyen, and the others. While everyone was thinking about this, Wang Teng, Long Outyen, Feng Tiange, and Feng Luofei had formed the Four Spirits Heaven Punishment Formation and began to join the battle. On the other side, Prince Ming-Shen and Lord Grimm had been fighting fiercely. They were old rivals and lived in the same era. Prince Ming-Shen had the bloodline of the Nether King, while Lord Grimm had the supreme human emperor physique, which ranked in the top 30 among the 3,000 physiques. Although Lord Grimm's strength had not recovered to its peak and he had suffered some injuries before, he was still strong. However, he was still able to fight the Prince of the Underworld with ease. This Lord Grimm is indeed difficult to deal with. Prince Ming-Shen's face was gloomy. He thought that he could get rid of Lord Grimm quickly, but who would have thought that he could not kill him directly? At this time, Wang Teng and the others formed the formation and attacked. Seeing this scene, Prince Ming-Shen's eyes flashed, but he did not say anything. Just as he said, the one who lived to the end would be the winner. It did not matter what method he used to win. As long as Lord Grimm was dead, all the problems would be solved. Kill. Long Outyen, Wang Teng, and the others activated the formation. The spirits of the four divine beasts roared and suppressed Lord Grimm. Lord Grimm's black hair mixed with white hair danced in the wind. He held the Tianji spear transformed from the Tianji umbrella and thrust it out. Dao patterns spread. Even though Wang Teng, Long Outyen, and the others resisted with the formation, their bodies trembled as they felt an extremely strong force. Is this the power of a Dao god? Long Aotian, Wang Teng, and the others looked serious. But they were all the chosen ones and had the ability to challenge those of a higher level. Besides, the four of them formed the formation together, so they could withstand it. Prince Ming Shan also attacked at the same time. He was a Tao God powerhouse in his peak state. Limitless Death Seal. Heavenly Ghost's 18 Claws. Prince Ming Shan used the Limitless Death Seal with one hand and the Hades Claw with the other to activate the Heavenly Ghost's 18 Claws. Terrifying power poured out. Wang Teng, Long Aotian, and the others' joint attack formation. Even a Tao God powerhouse in his peak state might not be able to withstand the fluctuation. Not to mention that Lord Grimm had not recovered his strength and was suffering from internal injuries. However, there wasn't a trace of fear on Lord Grimm's face. As the sequence 0 of the previous generation of the Jun family, Lord Grimm was still calm even in such a desperate situation. His body shook as a golden aura soared into the sky. Then, it gathered above his head to form a dazzling golden canopy. That's the Renhuang Physique's vision of heaven and earth, the Emperor's canopy. Seeing this scene, some of the geniuses who knew a little about the Renhuang Physique could not help but exclaim. As one of the top 30 terrifying physiques among the 3,000 physiques, the Renhuang Physique naturally had its own vision of heaven and earth. It was the Emperor's canopy. Lord Grimm, who was protected by the Emperor's canopy, held the Tianji spear in his hand and looked like an emperor war god. Endless spear technique. Lord Grimm's spear swept across the sky, exuding a terrifying aura that could kill all things. Boom! It was as if a nuclear bomb had exploded, and violent mana ripples spread out in all directions. In such an extreme collision, both sides were forced to retreat. Lord Grimm felt a fishy taste in his throat, but he swallowed it down. No matter how strong Lord Grimm was, he was still a human, not a god. To be able to fight to such an extent in such a desperate situation was already extremely unexpected. As expected of the former sequence 0 of the Jun family. Even though he's at his lowest state and is injured, he can still fight against the Prince of Ming, Wang Teng, Long Aotian, and the other top geniuses by himself. His strength is simply amazing. Many of the onlooking geniuses could not help but exclaim. This was like a second Jun Xiaoyao. Humph, it's over. Long Aotian snorted coldly, and once again activated the array to the extreme with Wang Teng and the others, suppressing them. The Prince of Ming also used his ultimate move, and the claw of hell came crashing down. Lord Grimm held the Tianji spear in his hand and laughed wantonly. What's the use of killing me? Today, even if I die, I will drag you down with me. Lord Grimm drank a mouthful of wine, ready to fight to the death. This is not good. Jun Lingtsang saw this scene and frowned. The death of Jun Haoyang and the others was already a great loss. If even the former sequence 0 of the Jun family died, it would be like cutting off a piece of meat for the Jun family. Not only that, but it would also have a great impact on their reputation. Outsiders would say that the Jun family could not even protect their own ancient freak. It might even affect the power structure in the future. At the same time, in the outside world, beside the immortal ancient mirror, many of the Jun family's elders were also tense. They seemed indifferent, but their hearts were in their mouths. If a person with a Renhuang physique died, even the Jun family would feel extremely pained. Xiao Yao. Jun Zhantian clenched his fists. It could be said that at this moment, regardless of the countless forces outside the immortal ancient mirror, or the various forces inside the immortal ancient mirror, all of their gazes were fixed on Lord Grimm. If Lord Grimm survived, the Jun family would be safe. If Lord Grimm died, the Jun family would suffer great losses in all aspect. Just as everyone was holding their breaths, and at this critical moment. In the distant sky, a dragon's roar sounded, accompanied by celestial light. At the same time, an indifferent and cold voice sounded like the voice of a god. A bunch of ants dare to overturn the sky. Do you really think that the Jun family has no one? Chapter 456. The voice was incomparably cold and calm, and it was not very loud. But strangely, it resounded in everyone's ears. Hearing this voice, everyone was stunned at first, and then their minds immediately exploded. This was especially true for those who had heard the voice before. Their gazes suddenly turned towards the source of the voice, and their expressions were filled with unprecedented shock. "He's here. That man, he's here." In the distant sky, a slender fairy dragon with the majestic aura of the dragon clan was riding on the clouds. On the dragon's head, a slender young figure stood against the wind. His long hair fluttered in the breeze. His handsome face carried a godlike indifference and coldness. It was as if he was looking down at the ants from the heavens. He stood with his hands behind his back, and his clothes fluttered in the wind. The celestial light around him surged, as if he was the son of the immortal emperor, the descendant of the gods. He quietly rode the dragon with the wind, but he seemed to give people the feeling that he was an immortal god descending to the world. "It's the son of God of the Jun family, he's here. How is it possible? I can't accurately sense the cultivation aura of the son of God of the Jun family. Oh my god, why do I feel like an immortal has arrived?" With the appearance of Jun Xiaoyao, the whole place was in an uproar. If there was something missing in this battle that concerned the Jun family, of course, it was the core and soul of the Jun family, the son of God of the Jun family, Jun Xiaoyao. Many people thought that Jun Xiaoyao might not come. But now, he was here. Jun Xiaoyao's arrival was no doubt like a bomb exploding, causing an uproar everywhere. Many people who were familiar with him were so excited that they couldn't control themselves. "Xiaoyao." Seeing that familiar handsome figure, Jiang Xingyi's eyes trembled. She realized that she missed someone so much. "Brother Xiaoyao." Jiang Luoli's eyes were also filled with deep longing. There were also Yang Qingying, Wu Mingyu, Su Ziqiong, Hua Shiqing, and Bai Mai These women who had some sort of relationship with Jun Xiaoyao in the past were all in a daze. In addition, even Ji Qingyi, Xiao Moxian, and Yang Ruming, who weren't too close to Jun Xiaoyao, were stunned, unable to believe what they were seeing. "His aura, why does it feel like?" Ji Qingyi's clear eyes were filled with confusion. "Is he the son of God of the Jun family?" Ji Chongkong frowned. Previously, when Ji Qingyi had told him about it, he had not taken it seriously. But now that he had seen it with his own eyes, his temperament and aura were indeed something. "Am I seeing things? The son of God of the Jun family is stepping on Princess Longji? F***CK, that's amazing. He's really treating Princess Longji as his mount." Many sky prides were stunned when they saw the fairy dragon, unable to believe their eyes. Jun Xiaoyao. If there was anyone present who hated Jun Xiaoyao the most, it would naturally be Long Outyen. His golden dragon eyes were filled with extreme hatred and coldness. Especially when he saw that Princess Longji had really become Jun Xiaoyao's mount, Long Outyen was so angry that he felt as if his organs were burning. The woman that he wanted to marry as his wife ended up being Jun Xiaoyao's mount instead. F***CK, this was a blatant humiliation and a slap in the face. Long Outyen wasn't the only one who wanted to kill Jun Xiaoyao. Wang Ting was the same. "It would have been better if you didn't appear. But since you've taken the initiative to appear, don't blame me." Wang Ting's eyes were extremely cold. Not only had Jun Xiaoyao stopped his marriage with Jiang Xingyi, but he had also destroyed one of his spiritual bodies. If he didn't defeat Jun Xiaoyao with his own hands, where would his dignity be? On the other side, Jun Mulan and the other sequence echelon cultivators were pleasantly surprised. They knew that since Jun Xiaoyao had come out of seclusion, his strength must have improved greatly. However, at this moment, Jun Xiaoyao's aura was unfathomable. No one could determine his exact level. At this moment, a crow-like voice rang out. "You're Jun Xiaoyao. How dare you provoke the people of the Demon God Palace? Kneel down and apologize." The person who spoke was the ancient freak of the Demon God Palace, the descendant of the supreme being of the Demon Dao, Wu Shuo. Jun Xiaoyao's gaze turned to Wu Shuo indifferently. Late-stage celestial god cultivation was indeed extraordinary. If Jun Xiaoyao hadn't gone into seclusion, he might have had to put in a lot of effort to deal with this. But now, haha, what, are you so scared that you don't dare to speak? Wu Shuo's lips curled into a cold smile. On the other side, Yang Yu Meng, who did not participate in the battle, suddenly felt a strong sense of foreboding when she looked at Jun Xiaoyao, whose aura was unfathomable. Jun Xiaoyao didn't say a word. He simply stretched out his palm. Countless Tao inscriptions intertwined in the void, forming a giant palm of magic power that blotted out the sky. As the palm stretched out, Zhang Xiaoyao's true level of cultivation also completely erupted. Countless Tao inscriptions surrounded him. All kinds of mysterious runes flickered in the void. This aura, it's the same as Lord Grimm and Prince Mingshan, am I mistaken? The Tao God realm? The son of God of the Zhun family is in the Tao God realm? Countless people in all directions were stunned and petrified. When Wu Shuo sensed the power of the Tao God's palm strike, the sneer on his face changed drastically. Tao God realm? How is this possible? Wu Shuo shrieked. At the same time, he transformed into his true form. A giant crow with dark red eyes and pitch-black feathers appeared. It was the Crow of Calamity. He activated the Crow of Calamity's innate superpower. A terrifying demonic sound turned into a destructive sound wave that spread out. However, Zhang Xiaoyao's palm of magic power pressed down, obliterating all the sound waves. Even the Crow of Calamity was crushed in his hand. He extended his hand into the air and clenched it all of a sudden. The giant palm of magic power formed by Tao inscriptions also suddenly close. Crack. Blood spurted out, bones shattered, and feathers flew everywhere. Wu Shuo's body and primordial spirit were completely crushed. The ancient freak of the demon god palace, Wu Shuo, had fallen. Dead silence. An unprecedented dead silence. A dead silence that felt like the end of the world. Everyone present felt as if their souls had been sucked out. It was as if they were only left with a shell. What did they see? A powerful ancient freak in the late-stage heavenly god realm was crushed to death by Zhang Xiaoyao. Zhang Xiaoyao didn't even bother to say a word to Wu Shuo from the very beginning. My brother Zhang is a man of few words. Crushing an ancient freak to death with a single palm. Tell me I'm dreaming. I also feel like I'm dreaming. How is this possible? All the spectating prodigies felt as if they were in a dream. This was an ancient freak with a powerful bloodline and a lofty status. Yet, he was so easily killed by Zhang Xiaoyao. Yang Ayu Meng was stupefied. Her flawless face lost all its color. She had imagined all kinds of scenarios, but she didn't expect this to happen. Zhang Xiaoyao killed an ancient freak like stepping on ants. I want to kill you. I want to destroy you. I want to humiliate you. All of you. Are you ready to bear the wrath of this son of God? Zhang Xiaoyao stood with his hands behind his back, his expression cold. Like a god, he controlled life and death. Leisurely literature, let the soul travel. Chapter 457. At this moment, all the enemies of the Zhun family had unprecedented fear on their faces. Zhang Xiaoyao's move shocked everyone. His cultivation of the Tao God realm was even more unbelievable. Zhang Xiaoyao was a genius of the current era, not some ancient freak. Even at 16 years old, he was considered young among the current generation of geniuses. A 16-year-old Tao God realm powerhouse was simply freaking abnormal. Even some of the top ancient freaks were only at that level. Not to mention the others, even Lord Grimm was a little startled. Is there an ancient freak in the Zhun family? Lord Grimm was a little confused. He was able to sense that Zhang Xiaoyao's aura was of the same bloodline as his. However, his cultivation didn't seem like a contemporary genius at all. It was more like a young king from ancient times who had woken up from a deep slumber. How is this possible? How did he cultivate to the Tao God realm? Long Aotian's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His face was extremely distorted. He couldn't believe it, and he didn't want to believe it. He originally thought that his mid-stage heavenly god cultivation was enough to crush Zhang Xiaoyao. But now, Zhang Xiaoyao was able to crush an ancient freak in late-stage celestial god realm. This was King ridiculous. Long Aotian was about to break down mentally. He wanted to curse. It felt like a person who had finally cultivated to the star glory stage and was ready to show off. However, he was facing a hidden king of glory. What was the point of competing? Long Aotian wasn't the only one who had broken down mentally. Wang Teng's aura was also a little unstable. Tao God realm. Wang Teng was stunned. He couldn't believe his eyes. He had been blessed since he was young. His father, Wang Yuanba, thought that he had the bearing of an emperor. However, compared to Zheng Xiaoyaro, it was obvious who had the bearing of an emperor. How is this possible? How can this be? Wang Teng clenched his fists. He wanted to let Jiang Shengyi know who was better between him and Zheng Xiaoyaro. However, there was no need to compete now. Tao God Realm. This is a contemporary genius. The prince of the underworld was also a little confused. His target was only Lord Grimm. He didn't care about the contemporary geniuses. But now, Zheng Xiaoyao's appearance left the underworld prince a little dumbfounded. The geniuses who were enemies of the Zheng family were all scared out of their wits. The geniuses on the Zheng family's side heaved a sigh of relief. The severely injured Zheng Wushuang, Zheng Mulan, and the others' eyes were filled with surprise. As for Jiang Shengyi, Jiang Luoli, and the other girls, besides longing, there was also surprise and admiration in their eyes. Zheng Xiaoyaro had never disappointed. He was always creating miracles. As for the heavens' favorites who were watching from afar, they too found it hard to conceal their astonishment. Qingyi, I didn't really believe what you said before, but now I do. Ji Changkong took a deep breath. The aura emanating from Zheng Xiaoyaro at the moment made him feel extremely pressured. Even I didn't think his strength would reach this level. He could casually kill an ancient freak. Ji Qingyi's eyes were dazed. At the same time, there was a faint trace of regret and annoyance in her heart. If she had been like Xiao Moxian and helped the Zheng family, then perhaps some of the previous friction could have been completely eliminated. Moreover, she would have been able to befriend an extremely powerful genius. Unfortunately, regret was useless. On the other side, Xiao Moxian covered her mouth with her hands, her eyes wide open. Little big brother Carefree has actually become so strong. Xiao Moxian was startled, but also overjoyed. She had made the right bet. The reason she had helped the Zheng family was to befriend Zheng Xiaoyaro. And now, Zheng Xiaoyao's strength had far surpassed her expectations. Zheng Xiaoyao. Long Aotian's eyes burst out with light. He couldn't accept this reality. I have the ability to jump ranks to challenge others. I don't fear him. Long Aotian clenched his teeth. He couldn't bear it any longer. He directly attacked, activating the supernatural ability of the ancient Void Dragon race, the Void Dragon Fist. As his fist punched out, ripples appeared in the void in front of him, and the phantom of an ancient dragon appeared. However, Zheng Xiaoyaro stood there with his hands crossed behind his back, his expression indifferent. He looked at Long Aotian as if he were looking at an ant. What's going on? The Zheng family's son of God isn't reacting at all. Is he not placing Long Aotian in his eyes? Many geniuses were shocked. Die. As Long Aotian saw this, he was even more enraged. His middle celestial realm cultivation completely erupted. His fist punched out, but the result was, that terrifying fist light turned into nothingness 100 feet in front of Zheng Xiaoyao. It didn't even flutter the hem of Zheng Xiaoyao's clothes. This is. Long Aotian was stunned once more. By the way, the Zheng family's son of God seems to have a secret technique that can give him a certain level of magical immunity, some of the geniuses said. It wasn't the first time Zheng Xiaoyaro had used magical immunity. Therefore, some people still noticed it. Originally, the strength of Long Aotian's Void Dragon Fist was enough to break through Zheng Xiaoyao's magical immunity. Unfortunately, Zheng Xiaoyao's strength had increased to the Tao God stage, so the magical immunity's effects had naturally increased again. Long Aotian, it seems like you've gotten some opportunities, but unfortunately. Zheng Xiaoyao's tone was cold as he shook his head slightly. He wasn't surprised that Long Aotian had gotten some opportunities. No matter how strong he was, he couldn't be stronger than him. Next, I'll give you a taste of your own medicine. As soon as Zheng Xiaoyaro finished speaking, he raised his hand and activated the 7 dragons' vital energy. 7 dragon-shaped phantoms of different attributes appeared, letting out dragon roars. The 7 dragons intertwined and turned into an apocalyptic wave that attacked Long Aotian. It was the ultimate move, 7 dragons destroy the world. This is my 7 dragons' vital energy. Long Aotian's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. The dragon soul blade appeared in his hand and he slashed horizontally. However, The result was, phut. Under Zhun Xiaoyao's attack, Long Outyen couldn't fight back at all. He spat out blood, his bones were broken, and he was knocked back hundreds of feet. Zhun Xiaoyao's casual attack had severely injured Long Outyen. Everyone was stunned and silent. That was Zulong's forbidden first generation, and his strength was comparable to that of an ancient freak. In the end, he couldn't even take a casual attack from Zhun Xiaoyao. Why do I feel that the Zhun family's son of God's 7 dragons' vital energy is more than 10 times stronger than Long Outyen's? Yeah, I think so too. The Zhun family's son of God's dragon clan's divine power is even stronger than Long Outyen's. Many geniuses were extremely surprised. Hearing this, Long Outyen couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. At this time, Lord Grim also took the opportunity to break free from the trap. His figure flashed, and he rushed to Zhun Xiaoyao's side. Brother, you are. Lord Grim also sized up Zhun Xiaoyao. Zhun Xiaoyao, the current sequence 0 of the Zhun family. Zhun Xiaoyao nodded slightly. I see. Lord Grim suddenly understood. Sequence 0 was not a sequence 0 in every generation. Only a true genius would be able to take on this identity. Lord Grim thought that he was already monstrous enough, but this generation's sequence 0 was even stronger. At this moment, Zhun Xiaoyao and Lord Grim stood together. The two sequences of the Zhun family stood side by side, and their aura shocked everyone. The underworld prince's face changed, and it was extremely ugly. Brother Xiaoyao, what do we do next? Lord Grim held the Tianji spear and smiled. Of course, blood for blood, a life for a life. Zhun Xiaoyao also put on the Overlord exterminating Holy King gloves. Who could defeat the sequence 0 of the Zhun family on the same stage? Chapter 458. When they saw the two sequence 0s, Zhun Xiaoyao and Lord Grim, standing side by side, their faces turned pale. The faces of the geniuses from the opposing forces of the Zhun family were ashen, as if they had lost their parents. Killing Lord Grim alone had taken them a lot of effort, and they had yet to succeed. Now, there was an even more monstrous and powerful Zhun Xiaoyao. How were they going to fight? The morale of the Kingslayer team dropped to the lowest point. Many of the primordial royal geniuses were terrified. Brother Xiaoyao, who do you choose? Lord Grim asked. Zhun Xiaoyao could choose Prince Ming, Long Outyen, Wang Teng, and the others. Zhun Xiaoyao smiled faintly and shook his head when he heard that. You're injured, so you should rest first. Leave this place to me. Zhun Xiaoyao took out an immortality herb and handed it to Lord Grim. Lord Grim was stunned. Brother Xiaoyao, Prince Ming is also in the Tao God realm. He's not easy to deal with. Lord Grim and Prince Ming were old enemies. He knew how powerful he was. Zhun Xiaoyao was also in the Tao God realm, but that didn't fully represent his strength. Besides, Long Outyen, Wang Teng, and the others were watching from the side. They're just a bunch of weaklings. Zhun Xiaoyao didn't care at all. This. All right. Lord Grim was a little embarrassed. He swallowed the immortality herb and began to recover. Attack. We can't let Lord Grim recover, shouted the underworld prince. Zhun Xiaoyao, who was at the divine path realm, was already difficult enough to deal with. If Lord Grim recovered from his injuries, the Kingslayer plan would fail. Not only that, but a large number of people would have to pay with their lives. Wang Teng, Long Outyen, Feng Tiange, Feng Luofei, and the others looked at each other and saw the determination in each other's eyes. Zhun Xiaoyao must die. 4 spirits heaven punishment formation. Long Outyen and the others activated the formation again, summoning 4 godly beast spirits to suppress Zhun Xiaoyao. Zhun Xiaoyao punched out with the hand that was wearing the Saint King Annihilation Overlord's glove. Countless Tao patterns appeared, transforming into a long river that surged out majestically. Boom! Heaven and earth shook violently. Long Outyen and the other three's formation was destroyed by a single punch. This degree of vigor caused countless gasps to ring out in the surroundings. Before the opening of the immortal ancient place, everyone assumed that Wang Teng, Long Outyen, or anyone else would be a worthy opponent for Zhun Xiaoyao. And now, even with the 4 of them joining forces, they still couldn't withstand a single punch from Zhang Xiaoyao. How could this be? Wang Teng and Long Aotian started to doubt their lives. The four of them were no match for Zhang Xiaoyao even if they joined forces. Just as Zhang Xiaoyao attacked, Princess Longji transformed into her human form. Her eyes were extremely cold as she looked at Aolwan. Today, you must die. Long Aotian won't be able to save you. Princess Longji attacked Aolwan. Aolwan's face turned pale. On the other side, Ao Guang saw this and stepped forward to block Princess Longji. On the other side, Zhang Xiaoyao looked at Long Aotian and the others. If it was before, he thought that Long Aotian, Wang Teng, and the others would be a little troublesome to deal with. But now, they were no match for him even if they joined forces. Pay with your life for the two ancient freaks of the Zhang family. Zhang Xiaoyao's expression was indifferent as he struck out with his palm again. Seeing this, the four of them used their strongest moves. Huang Tiange let out a long howl. The divine phoenix's undying flame surged out as if it wanted to burn the heavens. Feng Luofei gritted her teeth. A pair of beautiful phoenix wings spread out, carrying with them a monstrous spiritual energy. Long Aotian held the dragon soul blade in his hand and slashed out. Dragon qi boiled, and 1,000 feet long blade light swept across the sky. Wang Teng took out a golden holy sword. This was a gift from the heavens. The golden holy sword swept across the sky, and a vast amount of sword light swept out. The four heavens' favorites joined forces to attack. Its terrifying power was enough to threaten the lives of the ancient freaks. However, in Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes, these moves were extremely laughable. He used his finger as a sword and slashed out with the sword of the immortal slayer. A vast amount of sword light swept across the sky, showing the fall of the immortals. As Zhang Xiaoyao's capabilities increased, the power of his various techniques naturally increased as well. With one slash, the four heavens' favorites' strongest moves were broken. Long Aotian and Wang Ting were slightly better off. They only spat out a mouthful of blood. After all, their capabilities were stronger. However, Feng Luofei and Huang Tiange were in a more miserable state. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and their bodies were covered in sword wounds. Die. Zhang Xiaoyao simply pointed his finger and used the finger of the Thunder Emperor. 1,000-foot giant finger, like the Thunder Emperor himself, pressed down on Huang Tiange. Huang Tiange roared and burned her talent to the extreme. She even sacrificed her bloodline. However, phut. The sound of bones breaking could be heard. Huang Tiange's entire body was crushed to pieces by the finger. Her flesh and blood were turned into black dust by the lightning. How is this possible? Huang Tiange. Feng Luofei was completely stunned. Huang Tiange, who was as famous as her, had fallen so easily. She was killed by Zhang Xiaoyao with one finger. Don't worry. You can go down and accompany him. A divine chain of order flew out from Zhang Xiaoyao's forehead and turned into the sword of the Origin Emperor. It slashed towards Feng Luofei again. No. Feng Luofei had completely lost her will to fight. She turned around and flapped her wings to escape. In her eyes, Zhang Xiaoyao was the king of hell who came to take her life. However, it was still futile. With a plop, the sword of the Origin Emperor cut Feng Luofei's delicate body in half. Even her primordial spirit was destroyed. In the blink of an eye, the Phoenix Sun and Phoenix Maiden of Myriad Phoenix Spirit Mountain had fallen. The surroundings were silent. At that moment, Zhang Xiaoyao was practically unstoppable. He could kill anything that stood in his way. Long Aotian's entire body turned cold as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He felt that even if he stimulated the blood of the Emperor Dragon, it would be difficult to pose any threat to Zhang Xiaoyao. Damn it, how can he be so strong? Long Aotian was puzzled. He was supposed to be the main character. Why was Zhang Xiaoyao able to suppress him? Long Aotian, you've also grown fat. Zhang Xiaoyao sized up Long Aotian. In his eyes, Long Aotian was like a juicy leek. Moreover, Zhang Xiaoyao vaguely felt that there was an aura that resonated with him from Long Aotian's body. Could it be related to the 9 great heavenly books? Zhang Xiaoyao thought to himself. As the owner of the heavenly book, he might be able to vaguely sense other owners of the heavenly books. Of course, some of the more profound owners of the heavenly books might be able to block this perception. But it was clear that Long Aotian had not cultivated to perfection. Therefore, that aura was captured by Jun Xiaoyao. This is really a big leak. Jun Xiaoyao thought to himself. The 9 great heavenly books, even he would be moved. Jun Xiaoyao stretched out his hand and directly grabbed at Long Aotian. Long Aotian clenched his teeth, wanting to stimulate the blood of the Emperor Dragon. But at this time, 18 terrifying claw lights came crashing down from the sky. In front of this prince, it is not your turn to be impudent. The one who attacked was the Underworld Prince. Chapter 459. As the trump card of the fallen god Palace, he had once competed with Lord Grimm. The Prince of the Underworld's strength was undeniable. Among all the geniuses present, only the Prince of the Underworld could make Jun Xiaoyao pay attention. Jun Xiaoyao flipped his hand and punched the claw light. Although I don't know how you reached the Tao God realm at such a young age, you'd better keep a low profile in front of me. The Prince of the Underworld's eyes burned with death flames as he spoke indifferently. Others were afraid of Jun Xiaoyao, but he was not. His cultivation was also at the Tao God realm and he had many trump cards. He was not even afraid of Lord Grimm, so why would he be afraid of a young man? Ha ha! Times have changed. In this era, you can sleep forever, Jun Xiaoyao said calmly. What he meant was that the Prince of the Underworld could die now. You're asking for it. The Prince of the Underworld held the claw of the Underworld and clawed down. Heavenly Ghost Claw. As the claw came down, Underworld Chi and Ghost Chi surged as if a demon from the abyss had reached out from hell. Seeing this, Jun Xiaoyao also punched out with the Saint King Glove of the Annihilation Tyrant. Bang! The claw and fist met, and there was a cracking sound. Jun Xiaoyao's Saint King Glove of the Annihilation Tyrant was full of cracks. Oh! Jun Xiaoyao raised his eyebrows. The Saint King Glove of the Annihilation Tyrant was a weapon that he had forged a long time ago. Now it seemed that it was not as strong as he wanted to be. Break! The Prince of the Underworld's eyes flashed as the claw of the Underworld shattered the Saint King Glove of the Annihilation Tyrant. Then the claw hit Jun Xiaoyao's chest. If this attack landed, it would be bad for them. Oh no, the Son of God of the Jun family's divine weapon is broken, many people whispered. On the Jun family's side, everyone's hearts tightened. Jun Xiaoyao's expression was calm as usual. His body shook, and the 7-colored divine light surged. Then, a slender silver armor materialized inch by inch, sticking to Jun Xiaoyao's body. The surface of the silver armor was covered in a layer of colorful light, as if it was protected by the power of the 7 dragons. It was the 7-colored holy dragon armor. Clang! A crisp sound rang out. The supreme weapon, Hell King's Claw, struck the 7-colored sacred dragon armor, but it was unable to break through its defense. How is this possible? The Underworld Prince was shocked. Nobody expected Jun Xiaoyao to be able to conjure an armor with such formidable defensive capabilities right away. The primordial force of 7 dragons is inside it. Long Aotian clenched his teeth and his eyes almost popped out of their socket. That was the power he once possessed. Now, however, Jun Xiaoyao was playing an even greater role in the fight. This was unbearable. Long Aotian's battle intent began to waver. His mentality had completely collapsed. Where there's life, there's hope. Long Aotian was about to leave. He took a step forward, and the void rippled. His body transformed into an extremely fast speed, as if he was shuttling through the void. Hey! Jun Xiaoyao saw this and reached out his hand, wanting to stop Long Aotian. The Prince of the Underworld God attacked again. Limitless Death Seal. The Underworld Prince formed a seal with his hands, and a pitch-black seal came crashing down like an ancient demonic mountain. Jun Xiaoyao saw this and immediately punched out with the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. 6 reincarnation vortexes surged out along with the fist radiance, and directly destroyed the limitless death seal. At the same time, the aftershock blasted towards the Underworld Prince. The Underworld Prince used his Hell King's Claw as a shield to block the attack, but he was forced to take a few hundred steps back. His chest was trembling, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. What kind of technique is this? The Underworld Prince was shocked. He had never seen or heard of such a fist technique. It was as if the fist was going to send someone into the reincarnation cycle. It was hair-raising. And in this moment, Long Aotian's figure had disappeared without a trace. Forget it, Long Aotian. You're a fat sheep. You can't escape from the immortal ancient world. Jun Xiaoyao did not care too much. With Long Aotian's personality, he would definitely continue to cause trouble. When he had the chance, he would probably want to turn the tables and kill Jun Xiaoyao. When the time came, Long Aotian would take the initiative to come to him, and Jun Xiaoyao could just kill him with one palm. As for now, he would let the others pay the price first. I don't believe it. The underworld prince's face was cold. He had never been suppressed to such an extent by anyone. Even at his peak, Lord Grimm could only suppress him for a while, and could not pose a threat to his life. However, Jun Xiaoyao's punch made him feel like he was about to die. The underworld prince was not stupid. He could feel that Jun Xiaoyao's physical body was insanely strong, and his golden blood qi was overwhelming. It should be the legendary sacred body of the ancients. If that's the case, then I'll use soul means to deal with you, the underworld prince said coldly. Then, he activated the power of his primordial spirit, and at the same time, he silently chanted a series of complex and obscure scriptures. For a moment, a deathly silent and tragic atmosphere spread out, as if all life had fallen and the world was mourning. Could that be the fallen god Pallas's soul grand magic, Pluto's great compassion mantra? Some of the geniuses who knew a little about it felt a chill down their spines. They quickly retreated, and at the same time, used their soul power to protect their primordial spirits. Pluto's great compassion mantra was a terrifying soul grand magic with a fierce reputation. Once it was chanted, it could make all life bleed. The underworld prince had the bloodline of the underworld king. When he used the Pluto's great compassion mantra, its power was even more terrifying. Some of the geniuses who were slightly closer to him even bled from their orifices, and their primordial spirits exploded. Die. The underworld prince chanted the Pluto's great compassion mantra with all his might. Most of the power gathered toward Jun Xiaoyao. You want to compete with me on the path of souls? Jun Xiaoyao really wanted to laugh. The underworld prince knew that his physical body was strong, so he wanted to compete with him on the path of souls. Little did he know that Jun Xiaoyao's primordial spirit was the primordial spirit of the 3 lifetimes. He also cultivated the Tathagata mantra of the 3 lifetimes celestial sutra. Jun Xiaoyao also activated the power of his primordial spirit. In the void, the aura of his soul surged. A Virokana that seemed to suppress all eternity and emitted endless light appeared. When the Virokana appeared, the Pluto's great compassion mantra immediately dissipated. The underworld prince was stunned again. Your physical body is strong, so I can compete with you on the path of souls. In the end, your path of souls is also so strong. Can't we have a good time? Not only the underworld prince, but the other geniuses were also stunned. They knew that Jun Xiaoyao's primordial spirit was not weak, but they didn't expect it to be so strong. Even the geniuses who specialized in the primordial spirit and path of souls were no match for Jun Xiaoyao. Suppress. Jun Xiaoyao activated the power of his primordial spirit, and the Pluto's great compassion mantra was completely destroyed. The underworld prince's mind shook violently, and his primordial spirit trembled. He suffered a backlash and spat out a mouthful of blood. His head felt like it was about to explode. He was about to collapse. When he saw this, Wang Ting's heart turned cold. Even the underworld prince was no match for Jun Xiaoyao. Wang Ting, who had an invincible Dao heart, wanted to retreat. Damn it! The underworld prince's hair was disheveled, and his chin was covered in blood. His eyes were ferocious, and his face was contorted. In his era, he had been suppressed by Lord Grimm. Now, he had finally reappeared and wanted to fight for the mandate of heaven. Yet another monster had appeared, Jun Xiaoyao. How was he going to let them live? Today, I will kill you. The underworld prince threw caution to the wind. His Pluto bloodline was fully activated, and his body was covered in a layer of terrifying Pluto flames. Oh no, is he going to use that move? Lord Grimm, who was recuperating, was shocked when he saw this. The power of that move was earth-shattering, and it was definitely a killer move. Even Lord Grimm would have to give it his all. Would Jun Xiaoyaro be able to take it? Chapter 460. Every single one of those ancient freaks had extraordinary strength and had their own trump cards. Therefore, while it was possible to determine the winner among the ancient freaks, it was difficult to determine life and death. Even a cornered dog would jump over a wall, let alone a talented ancient freak. Everyone had their own tricks up their sleeves. At this moment, the Prince of the Underworld had decided to use his trump card. He was very confident in this move. The Prince of the Underworld slowly bent his knees in front of Jun Xiaoyaro, as if he was about to kneel. Everyone was dumbfounded. What is going on? The Prince of the Underworld actually knelt in front of Jun Xiaoyaro? Even if he admitted defeat, he didn't have to go to this extent, did he? No, could it be that move? The ancient freak of the Ji clan, Ji Changkong, seemed to have thought of something taboo. His expression changed and he quickly retreated with Ji Qingyi. What's wrong? Ji Qingyi was shocked by Ji Changkong's reaction. On the other side, the ancient freak of the Yi clan, Yi Nantian, was also shocked. He quickly retreated. The ancient freaks were obviously more knowledgeable than the current generation of geniuses. They had thought of a terrifying superpower. The Prince of the Underworld is a lunatic. He actually wants to use this superpower. Jiang Tianyan's expression was ugly. Brother Xiaoyao, be careful. Lord Grimm couldn't help but remind him. The Prince of the Underworld had used this move on him before. Even if he didn't use it fully, it was enough to threaten Lord Grimm. Interesting. I hope you don't disappoint me, the son of God. Jun Xiaoyaro was not worried at all. Instead, he was curious. If the Prince of the Underworld really had the ability to defeat or injure him, Jun Xiaoyaro would be happy. After all, it was really lonely to be invincible in the same generation. One-armed Underworld King, Cao Tao. The Prince of the Underworld knelt on one knee in front of Jun Xiaoyaro. At the same time, behind him, an endless amount of underworld qi surged into the void. Finally, a giant figure appeared. That figure was like the overlord of hell, a supreme lord of the underworld, and every single move he made was capable of annihilating all living beings. Most shocking of all, that terrifying demonic silhouette only had a single arm. That's the ancient one-armed Hell King. Many prodigies felt as if their souls were about to leave their bodies. In ancient times, there were some powerful existences that had intimidated the Nine Heavens immortal realm. For example, the true Lord Gulen of the Saint sect. And the one-armed Nether King. In ancient times, these experts were like gods that were worshipped by all. There were even rumors that these godlike powerhouses had not fallen, but were instead slumbering in the passage of time, waiting for an opportunity. Right now, the Prince of the Underworld, who possessed a trace of the Underworld King's bloodline, had finally used his trump card, the one-armed Underworld King's 3 kowtows. At that moment, although it was only a single kowtow, its frightening might had already caused the surroundings to tremble. The one-armed Pluto was a legendary expert in ancient times. It had always been others worshipping him, not him worshipping others. How many people in this world could withstand a blow from the one-armed Nether King? In other words, not many people in the same cultivation could withstand the attack from the Prince of the Underworld God. It's your honor to die from this attack. The Prince of the Underworld God's face turned even paler, yet he wore a cruel grin. Can't you do something new? Aren't you tired of saying the same thing every day? Jun Xiaoyao's eyes flickered with astonishment when he sensed the power of the one-armed Underworld King's kowtow, but that was all he could do. Fist of the 6 Paths of Reincarnation. Jun Xiaoyaro clenched his fist and threw a punch forward. The punch consisted of 6 different moves, as if it had turned into 6 different worlds of reincarnation. The Fist of the 6 Paths of Reincarnation was an outstanding fist art. It could be improved as Jun Xiaoyao's strength improved. It felt like the punch was going to destroy the heavens. The illusionary figure of the one-armed Underworld King was blasted into pieces by Jun Xiaoyao's punch. The Prince of the Underworld God's chest shuddered. He spat out a mouthful of blood with astonishment. He was surprised that Jun Xiaoyaro was able to break his trump card with such ease. I don't believe it. The prince of the underworld god gritted his teeth and activated the dharmic powers in his body again. The underworld chi surged. He performed the second move again. The one-armed underworld king's second kowtow. Behind him, the one-armed underworld king, who was tens of thousands of feet tall, kowtowed again. The second move was even more powerful than the first move. The underworld chi surged into the sky and swept in all directions. Some of the surrounding geniuses who did not dodge in time were instantly crushed and turned into a bloody pulp. Jun Xiaoyaro threw a punch in the face of this move. "Do you really think you can break all moves with a single punch?" the prince of the underworld god said coldly. Jun Xiaoyaro chuckled and stomped his foot. With a loud bang, the immortal light surged. Behind him, a terrifying figure appeared. It was like a supreme immortal king, suppressing the entire world. It was the vision of the sacred body of the ancients, the immortal king descending to the 9 heavens. The immortal king descending to the 9 heavens was an invincible dharmic powers that multiplied the power of the move. Jun Xiaoyaro threw a punch. The illusionary figure of the immortal king behind him threw a punch too. The power of the fist of the 6 paths of reincarnation instantly skyrocketed to a terrifying level. Bang! The 9 heavens immortal king threw a punch at the one-armed underworld king. The one-armed underworld king was nullified again. Puff! The prince of the underworld god spat out a mouthful of blood. His bones were shattered as he was sent flying. The whole place fell silent. Who would have thought that the ancient Tao god realm freak, the trump card of the fallen god's palace, would be suppressed to such a miserable state by Jun Xiaoyaro? Brother Xiaoyao's strength is simply, even Lord Grimm, who was used to seeing big storms and big waves, was somewhat startled. With Jun Xiaoyao's strength, if he was born in his era, he would not have the chance to become Sequence 0. How is this possible? I don't believe it, I don't believe it. The prince of the underworld god's face twisted like a demon. He could not accept this cruel reality. I haven't lost yet. The prince of the underworld god wore a ferocious expression. Next, he had the third move. Although the prince of the underworld god would not be able to withstand this move, he only wanted to kill Jun Xiaoyaro now. One-armed underworld king. 3 kowtows. Blood burst out of the prince of the underworld god's body as if he was sacrificing himself. The one-armed underworld king appeared behind him again. Underworld chi rolled like waves, drowning the entire mortal world. The entire ancient spiritual land seemed to have turned into a doomsday scene in an instant. The power of the one-armed underworld king's 3 kowtows was truly unleashed. The prince of the underworld god had not used this move even when he was facing Lord Grimm. And now, he was using it against Jun Xiaoyaro. The one-armed underworld king kowtowed again as if he was going to drag the whole world into hell. Jun Xiaoyaro stood in the air and felt the power of this move. It was as if it was going to crush him and the void around him into powder. This move is finally a little interesting. You are qualified to make me use that move. Jun Xiaoyao's black hair danced in the wind as he smiled faintly. His self-created Grand Tao of Origin just happened to lack an opportunity to test its power. As for the other elites, they were not qualified to make Jun Xiaoyaro use that move. Jun Xiaoyaro reached out his hand and the origin of God in his dantian vibrated slightly. The origin energy of the universe surged out and turned into origin divine chains. Then, in the void, they intertwined to form an eternal light. Genesis, Light of God. Chapter 461. This was the first time that Jun Xiaoyaro had used the great path of origin that he had created in a real battle. When this light appeared, everyone's gazes were involuntarily attracted to it. The first feeling was beauty. The second feeling was danger. Extreme danger. Even some of the ancient freaks felt their hair stand on end, let alone the ordinary heaven's favorites. What kind of great path of origin is this? It's so terrifying. It seems to be able to annihilate everything. Endless gasps could be heard from all around. This was the first time that Jun Xiaoyaro had used the great path of origin in front of everyone. As soon as he made his move, it shocked everyone. This light seemed to have cut through the darkness of doomsday, split the chaos, and divided the heavens and the earth. The divine light swept across, and the one-armed lord of hell's figure directly disappeared in the endless divine light. Smoke came out of it. Even the Prince of Hell was annihilated. His physical vitality was also wiped out by the divine light. His flesh and blood collapsed inch by inch and turned into ashes. Even his primordial spirit was turned into nothingness. The Prince of Hell didn't even have time to scream before he was annihilated in the divine light. The Prince of Hell had fallen. At this moment, everyone was dead silent. The enemies of the Jun family felt a chill run down their spines. They were not ordinary geniuses, nor were they ordinary ancient freaks. He was a powerful being in the Tao divinity realm. That one-armed lord of Hell's 3 kowtows was enough to kill 99% of the geniuses present. But now, the powerful Prince of Hell had been killed by Jun Xiaoyaro with a single move. If the truth hadn't been right in front of their eyes, no one would have believed it. When Wang Ting saw this, he immediately took out a space-piercing talisman and tried to escape. Trying to escape. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were indifferent. At that moment, Jun Xiaoyaro also caught a trace of ripple in another part of the void. That trace of fluctuation escaped in another direction. Jun Xiaoyao's face suddenly turned cold. Compared to external enemies, the mole was even more hateful. Jun Xiaoyaro didn't care about Wang Ting. Instead, he took a step forward and extended his hand to grab the air in another direction. The void trembled as if it was about to be torn apart. A silhouette appeared. It was the cloaked man who worked under Wang Ting and plotted against the Jun family. Jun Xiaoyaro reached out with one hand and grabbed the cloaked man. No matter how the cloaked man struggled, causing ripples in the void, he was unable to escape from Jun Xiaoyao's palm. "Let me go," a familiar voice sounded. His voice stunned the geniuses of the Jiang family nearby. That voice is, Jiang Chuhan was in disbelief. Jun Xiaoyaro smiled coldly and used a wisp of magic power to shatter the cloaked man's cloak. A handsome man in luxurious clothes revealed his true appearance. It was Hua Yuanxiu. Hua Yuanxiu, it's you. The elites of the Jiang family were in disbelief at first, then they were enraged. They weren't stupid. After connecting the dots, they immediately understood. It turned out that Hua Yuanxiu had always been a member of the Wang family. Not only did you plot against the Jun family this time, but you must have also secretly revealed my grandfather Jiang Daoshu's health condition to the Wang family. Otherwise, how could the Wang family be so coincidental to propose marriage at that time and even bring the 9 Wonders reincarnation immortal grass? Jun Xiaoyaro said indifferently. He had already expected this, but he didn't have any substantial evidence. Besides, he had other things to do, so he didn't do anything for now. However, it didn't mean that Jun Xiaoyaro would let Hua Yuanxiu go. Hua Yuanxiu's face turned red after being caught red-handed in public. He couldn't say anything to refute. Hua Yuanxiu, you really make me feel disgusted. Jiang Chuhan frowned and felt nauseous. She felt even more disgusted at the thought of her almost marrying Hua Yuanxiu. Fortunately, she hadn't let Hua Yuanxiu lay a finger on her, and Jun Xiaoyaro had exposed her in public. Damn it, Jun Xiaoyaro, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been forced to do this, Hua Yuanxiu said with a ferocious expression. Don't complain to me. Trash is trash. Death is your only choice. Jun Xiaoyaro didn't want to say anything to this ant. He shook his arm, and his dharmic power surged. Hua Yuanxiu's entire body exploded, along with his primordial spirit. Even the prince of the underworld was no match for Jun Xiaoyaro. Hua Yuanxiu, who had the Void Emperor physique, couldn't resist at all. However, Jun Xiaoyaro didn't have time to chase after Wang Ting because he wanted to expose Hua Yuanxiu's murder. But it didn't matter. Wang Ting was similar to Long Outyen. They were both extremely proud people. He wasn't afraid that they wouldn't take the initiative to come to him. Oh right, and you. Jun Xiaoyaro locked onto another figure. It was Jiyu Chanzi of the Celestial Cicada clan. It could be said that Jiyu Chanzi was the absolute core of this Kingslayer plan. Although his cultivation wasn't the best, he was the most useful. The Celestial Cicada clan with few members. Unfortunately, you provoked the Jun family. You can't escape destruction. Jun Xiaoyaro casually pointed at Jiyu Chanzi. Jiyu Chanzi's expression also changed, and he couldn't resist. So you are the biggest tribulation. Jiyu Chanzi stared at Jun Xiaoyaro. For some reason, he felt that Jun Xiaoyaro wasn't just a tribulation this time. He was also a terrifying tribulation for the 9 heavens and 10 earths and the 10,000 ancient races. The glory of the Archean royalty would probably end completely in Jun Xiaoyao's hand. In the end, Jiyu Chanzi used his own life to see a corner of the future. That corner was very dark for the Archean royalty. A figure with his back to all living beings suppressed the 10,000 ancient races. Unfortunately, Jiyu Chanzi could no longer tell this prophecy. Who's next? Jun Xiaoyao's gaze landed on Ao Guang of the dragon human race again. Ao Guang's expression also changed. He wanted to retreat earlier, but he was entangled by Princess Longji and couldn't escape at all. At this moment, being noticed by Jun Xiaoyaro was like being targeted by an ancient ferocious beast. Didn't you say that when you came out of seclusion, I would definitely die? What about now? Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were cold and playful. At this moment, Ao Guang only felt a chill all over his body. As a high and mighty young king of immortal ancient, he lost all his elegance in front of Jun Xiaoyao. How did this person become so strong all of a sudden? Ao Guang racked his brains but couldn't understand. When Jun Xiaoyao fought with his shadow previously, he was only at the true god realm. Now, he was so strong that just a look was enough to make him tremble. Jun Xiaoyao didn't waste any more words and attacked again. Ao Guang's strength was indeed not weak, but in front of Jun Xiaoyao, whose strength had skyrocketed, he was still as weak as an ant. Even when Ao Guang transformed into the radiant holy dragon in the end, he was still beheaded by Jun Xiaoyao's immortal slaying sword art. The young king of immortal ancient had also fallen. At this moment, all sides were terrified. Jun Xiaoyao casually killed the enemy with a flick of his finger. It was like the grim reaper of hell, choosing a sacrifice for death. The son of God of the Jun family is going crazy. Some of the geniuses who were watching the battle outside sighed. Chapter 462. Who would have thought that this siege against the Jun family would end up as their own grave? No one there was able to stop Jun Xiaoyao's murderous aura. After Jun Xiaoyao killed Ao Guang, Princess Longji got her wish and cut Ao Luan into pieces. Not just a phrase, but a real cut to pieces. After getting her revenge, Princess Longji's anger dissipated, and her thoughts became clear. She looked at Jun Xiaoyao with a complicated look in her eyes. If Jun Xiaoyao hadn't killed Ao Guang directly, perhaps Ao Guang would have had a chance to escape with Ao Luan. Then it would have been difficult for her to get her revenge. Thank you, Master. Princess Longji's tone was a little unnatural, and her voice was as soft as a mosquito's. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes dimmed, and he nodded lightly. Princess Longji didn't know that this was all set up by Jun Xiaoyao from the beginning. Whether it was by Mai or Ao Luan, they were just tools. But it didn't matter. With Ao Luan's death, Bai Mai was dead set on Jun Xiaoyao. Princess Longji would never know this secret. Jun Xiaoyao looked around again. He couldn't be bothered to attack them one by one. He directly activated the divine elephant overpowering force and summoned the gates of hell. Jun Xiaoyao had already cultivated 100,000 elemental granules. So this time, the gates of hell were completely open. All kinds of terrifying asuras, demons, and rakshasas appeared one after another. It was as if hell had returned to the mortal world. All the geniuses who were enemies of the Jun family fell into unparalleled fear and despair. Death was just a matter of a moment earlier or later. The other 2 young kings of immortal ancient, Little Witch God and Heavenly Eye Saint, also let out angry roars and resisted with all their might. Heavenly Eye Saint killed one of the Jun family's echelon sequence. The ancient witch tribe and Jun Xiaoyao also had conflicts. Jun Xiaoyao wouldn't show mercy to these 2 tribes. In the end, these 2 young kings of immortal ancient could only die in grief and indignation. They couldn't resist Jun Xiaoyao at all. Of immortal ancient's 4 great young kings, only Li Qiushirei remained. When Li Qiushirei saw this scene, she also felt a little emotional. She was glad that she was on good terms with Jiang Xingyi and had chosen the right side. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to escape either. Apart from the immortal ancient clans, there was also the Archean royalty, but they were similarly wiped out. In the end, the Chilean child was killed by Jun Lingsang's Polychoria. Zulong's Long Bichi was also powerless to resist. In fact, when Long Aotian fled in a panic, Long Bichi's Taoist heart had completely collapsed. Even until her death, she couldn't get rid of Jun Xiaoyao's shadow. The other prodigies of the Archean royalty had also died in the encirclement of the creatures from the gates of hell. The saint son of the saint sect was also killed directly. There was no chance for him to survive. Apart from Wang Teng, who had escaped, the other prodigies of the Wang family in the northern region had also all died. The prodigies of the fallen god palace were also wiped out. As for the Archean royalty, they were just a bunch of cannon fodder. They were torn apart by the creatures from the gates of hell. Only Bai Mai was safe and sound. In addition, Yang Rumeng of the demon god palace was also as pale as a sheet of paper. Jun Xiaoyaro glanced at Yang Rumeng. Yang Rumeng's delicate body trembled. She felt as if her soul had been frozen. Jun Xiaoyaro withdrew his gaze and didn't make a move. Firstly, Yang Rumeng was sensible enough not to get involved in the battle of the Kingslayers. Secondly, there was another force and will in Yang Rumeng's body. Jun Xiaoyaro was also curious about what the one from the demon god palace was up to. Jun Xiaoyaro didn't mind playing with that one. After the massacre, the entire Shentian mountain range quieted down. As far as the eye could see, the entire Shentian mountain range was riddled with holes. It had turned into a basin. The ground was crisscrossed with cracks. The ground was covered in blood and corpses. This battle was a total annihilation. Except for Wang Teng and Long Aotian, the rest of the creatures had all died. The scene was very bloody and shocking. The son of God of the Jun family turned the situation around by himself. Some of the prodigies who were watching the battle murmured absent-mindedly. Originally, the battle of the Kingslayers was extremely unfavorable for the Jun family. Even with the help of the Jiang family and other forces, they might still be defeated. But this battle was completely turned around because of Jun Xiaoyao's intervention. To put it bluntly, even if Jun Xiaoyaro was the only one from the Jun family, the Kingslayers probably wouldn't have been able to do anything to him. Jun Xiaoyaro alone was enough to set the world in stone. At this moment, Jun Xiaoyaro stood in the air with his hands behind his back. Beneath his feet were countless corpses and skeletons. Jun Xiaoyaro alone was enough to make everyone bow their heads and submit to him. Jun Xiaoyaro looked around. None of the spectating prodigies dared to look at Jun Xiaoyaro. Even ancient freaks like Ji Changkong and Yi Nantian couldn't help but look away. They didn't dare to look at Jun Xiaoyaro. It was as if Jun Xiaoyaro was the only king in the world. After looking around, Jun Xiaoyaro said with a supreme tone, "In the entire world, only the Jun family can claim the throne. No one can bear the anger of the Jun family." These two sentences made the world go silent. The sequences of the Jun family felt their blood boiling. It was as if every drop of blood was burning. In the entire world, only the Jun family can claim the throne. How bold and bold was this? How many people dared to speak like this? However, Jun Xiaoyaro dared to do so. "I, Jun Lingsang, will follow the Son of God forever and protect the immortal name of the Jun family." Jun Lingsang bowed respectfully. "I, Jun Wushuang, will follow the Son of God forever and let the Jun family conquer the 9 heavens." Jun Wushuang also bowed respectfully. Sequences such as Jun Mulan, Jun Wanjie, Jun Shuahuang, Jun Shiyu, and Jun Zhangjian also showed a fanatical look and bowed respectfully. Ha ha, each new generation excels the previous one. "I, Lord Grimm, am willing to follow the Son of God and sweep through the Emperor Road and spread the name of the Jun family." Lord Grimm laughed heartily. The Jun family had produced a true dragon. Even an old man like him couldn't help but admire them. The prestige of the Jun family had greatly increased because of Jun Xiaoyaro. It was not hard to imagine that the prestige of the Jun family would skyrocket if this matter was spread out. In the era of great battles, there are many monsters. It's just that, isn't this too much? Ji Changkong sighed and felt a faint sense of powerlessness in his heart. It wasn't easy to endure until the era of great battles where there was a chance to prove one's Tao. In the end, a terrifying anomaly like Jun Xiaoyaro appeared. This person will definitely monopolize half of the prosperity of this era of great battles. Sigh. Yi Nantian, the ancient freak of the Yi family, also sighed deeply. In this era, who could compete with the son of God of the Jun family? Apart from the geniuses on the Jun family's side, the geniuses and ancient freaks of the other forces felt a little powerless. Jun Xiaoyaro was like a mountain that pressed down on the heads of all the geniuses. As long as Jun Xiaoyaro didn't die, all the geniuses in this era would only be qualified to fight for second place. However, Jun Xiaoyaro himself looked indifferent. He didn't think that what he had done was that great. Rather, it was something that couldn't be more normal. It's finally over, but it's not over yet. Jun Xiaoyaro muttered to himself. He seemed to have a premonition that a bigger storm was still to come. The immortal war, huh? My Jun family has never been afraid of it. Jun Xiaoyaro stood with his hands behind his back. His eyes seemed to have looked outside the immortal ancient world and saw the anger of the hostile forces. Chapter 463. Outside the immortal ancient world, beside the immortal ancient mirror. At this moment, the atmosphere seemed to be frozen and dead silent. Not a single sound was made. Those hostile forces of the Jun family, the Archean royalty, the fallen god palace, the Wang family of the north, the sacred sect, and other forces, all looked extremely ugly. It was as if they had eaten a dead fly. How could this be? An elder in the Zulong shouted, unable to accept this. Damn it! An elder in the Wanhuang spiritual mountain shouted in grief and anger. Qilin Sun. In the ancient Qilin cave, a middle-aged man in a purple robe roared in anger. He was the father of the Qilin Sun, and also the cave master of the ancient Qilin cave. Dead, all dead. A group of black-robed people in the fallen god palace said in despair. The fallen son of God was dead. The dark son of God was dead. The Prince Ming Shun, who they regarded as their trump card, was also dead. The geniuses of the fallen god palace were almost all killed. The Prince Ming Shun is dead. I wonder if that bloodline will be angry, an elite from the fallen god palace whispered. That bloodline was the bloodline left behind by the one-armed Lord Ming. Strictly speaking, the Prince Ming Shun was also related to that bloodline. There was no doubt now. Not only had the Kingslayer plan failed completely, these geniuses who participated in the plan were almost all killed. Even if Wang Teng and Long Outyan were lucky to escape, no one would think that they could pose any threat to Jun Xiaoyao after seeing Jun Xiaoyao's powerful strength. In short, the entire immortal ancient world was Jun Xiaoyao's world. Those elites of the immortal ancient races couldn't leave their ancestral land. Jun Xiaoyaro was the strongest in the immortal ancient world. How could this be? My son has the bearing of a great emperor. Wang Yuanba, the head of the Wang family, was a little confused. Wang Teng's reputation could be said to be partly because of his father, Wang Yuanba. But now, the boast was exposed. Compared to Jun Xiaoyaro, Wang Ting had no bearing of a great emperor. Some people looked at Wang Yuanba with a strange look in their eyes. Even if Wang Ting came out alive, he probably wouldn't have the face to appear in front of the world. Ch. Wang Yuanba, will deal with Hua Yuanxiu later. An elder of the Jiang family snorted. They would not let the matter of Hua Yuanxiu go. Compared to the miserable state of the Archean royalty and the other forces, the elders of the Jun family all had smiles on their faces. One could say that Jun Xiaoyaro had given them a huge surprise. My grandson is the one who truly has the bearing of a great emperor. Jun Zhantian grinned from ear to ear, feeling extremely carefree. The Jun family's reputation had indeed been damaged before. But now, Jun Xiaoyaro had single-handedly turned the tide and saved the building from collapse. Not only did this restore the Jun family's reputation, but it also made the Jun family's prestige soar. Things won't end like this. The experts of the Archean royalty, Northland Wang family, Fallen God Palace, and other forces secretly exchanged glances. Vaguely, it was as if an even greater storm was brewing. Ancient spiritual land, mysterious heaven mountain range. Jun Xiaoyaro stood with his hands behind his back. He also knew that this incident was just a fuse. A fuse that could lead to an immortal war. However, This was not something Jun Xiaoyaro needed to worry about at the moment. With the huge primordial Jun family behind him, Jun Xiaoyaro did not need to be afraid of any threats. Let's go. Seeing that the incident had ended, the surrounding sky prides dispersed one by one. This time, they had witnessed a true legend. My next goal is to cultivate, and cultivate, Yinantian muttered to himself. In front of Jun Xiaoyaro, ancient freaks like them were just ordinary people. If they did not work hard, they would probably become passers-by in the Emperor Road. To think that there's such a monster in this generation. The Emperor Road is really interesting, but I won't sink just like that. Ji Changkong whispered. Most of the ancient freaks had a good temperament. Although Jun Xiaoyaro was so strong that it made people despair, the others were still qualified to work hard, right? However, Ji Changkong would never have thought, if working hard was useful, what was the point of having geniuses? Ji Qingyi let out a sigh too. She could feel a hint of regret in her heart. However, she still shook her head. The Emperor Road is unprecedentedly intense. It's the highest stage for the geniuses of the Nine Heavens immortal realm. Son of the ancient emperor, successor of the martial monarch, young master of the forbidden area, Jun Xiaoyaro, how long can you be unbeatable? Ji Qingyi murmured in her heart. She really wanted to know just how far Jun Xiaoyaro would be able to go. Would he still be unbeatable in the Emperor Road? As the crowd left, those who remained were all on Jun Xiaoyao's side. Xiaoyao, Jiang Xingyi's hair was like a waterfall. Her face was crystal clear, and her eyes were filled with longing and longing. Jun Xiaoyaro was buried because of her, and it was only now that she was able to see the person she missed so dearly. As soon as Jiang Xingyi took a step forward, Linglong impatiently went up to Jun Xiaoyao. She habitually clung onto Jun Xiaoyao like an octopus. Brother Xiaoyao, I've missed you so much. Jiang Luoli was the only one who could cling onto Jun Xiaoyao like that. It's been a while, why haven't you grown any taller? Jun Xiaoyao raised his brows. Jun Xiaoyao, who was previously killing everyone, was imperious and cold like a deity. However, Jun Xiaoyao had now returned to his gentle demeanor, as if he had turned into a gentle immortal. Looking at Jiang Luoli, who was hanging leisurely on Jun Xiaoyao, many of the women present revealed looks of envy. After all, not everyone had the right to be so intimate with Jun Xiaoyao. A trace of undetectable bitterness flashed across Jiang Xingyi's eyes when she saw this scene. However, she still wore a smile on her face. Jiang Luoli wrinkled her nose when she heard Jun Xiaoyao poke at her weakness. She ground her small canine teeth and said, "Brother Xiaoyao, why are you poking at my sore spot? I'm already trying my best to develop." Jun Xiaoyao was speechless when he saw Jiang Luoli's ordinary chest. Was she really a legal loli? Alright, come down. There are so many people watching. How improper. Jun Xiaoyao said. Jiang Luoli blushed as well. She reluctantly loosened her arms and legs, but she still stuck to Jun Xiaoyao's side, leaning on him like a little bird. Seeing this, some of the women present, such as Yang Qingying, Wu Mingyu, Su Ziqiong, Jun Shuahuang, Hua Shiqing, Bai Mai and the others, all felt envy in their hearts. There was also a tinge of jealousy that spread through their hearts. This atmosphere, why does it seem a bit strange? Jun Zhanjian was a bit startled. Ayaya, is there a need to publicly declare your sovereignty like this? Little brother Xiaoyao hasn't even married you yet. Xiao Moxian jumped out, clicking her tongue. She and Jiang Luoli had been bickering since they were in the lower realms. These two lolis seemed to dislike each other. Humph, what does that have to do with you? Big brother Xiaoyao is mine. Jiang Luoli arched her eyebrows. She was Jiang Ru's daughter-in-law. Isn't it still too early? Princess Royal Wu Mingyu of the Jin dynasty smiled faintly. Shiqing thinks that an outstanding man like Son of God shouldn't only have one woman, Hua Shiqing also said with a smile. Seeing this group of women bickering over Jun Xiaoyao, the other men were speechless. Brother Xiaoyao, can your kidneys take it? Lord Grim walked to Jun Xiaoyao's side and teased him. Lord Grim was cold and heartless to his enemies, but he was very humorous to his family. The kidneys of the sacred body of the ancients. What do you think? Jun Xiaoyao raised his eyebrows. But to be honest, He was the worst at dealing with this kind of situation. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaoyao noticed Jiang Shengyi from the corner of his eye. She had been standing to the side. Because of Jiang Luoli, she didn't walk to Zhang Xiaoyao's side. She silently watched the women bicker, but she didn't say a word. Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes flashed slightly. Then, he walked up to Jiang Shengyi. Chapter 464. Sister Shengyi, it's been a long time, Zhang Xiaoyao said with a handsome smile. Ah, that's right, Xiaoyao. As expected, you always bring unexpected surprises. Jiang Shengyi was slightly surprised at first. She didn't expect Zhang Xiaoyao to take the initiative to walk up to her. She was happy and happy. Of course, she didn't show it too obviously. Zhang Xiaoyao naturally wouldn't forget how Jiang Shengyi treated him warmly before he went to the eternal burial ground. She even gave him a knee pillow. If Jiang Luoli was said to be a cute and cute lowly, Jiang Shengyi was a mature and gentle big sister next door. She wasn't like Jiang Luoli, who relied on Zhang Xiaoyao. Instead, she would support and help Zhang Xiaoyao when he needed it. For example, in the secret treasure of Yuantian, if not for the help of Jiang Shengyi's carnate Dao embryo, Zhang Xiaoyao wouldn't have been able to solve the crisis and fight against the supreme demon corpse. This should be suitable for Sister Shengyi's carnate Dao embryo. Zhang Xiaoyao took out a bone jade slip from his spatial Dharma artifact. It was the Dao enlightenment of Chaos Dao Master that he had obtained at the immortal ancient Dao Lake. This enlightenment wasn't very useful to Zhang Xiaoyao, but it was very useful to Jiang Shengyi, who had a carnate Dao embryo. This is, Jiang Shengyi couldn't hide her joy as she felt the Dao aura emitted by the bone jade slip. But she still said, Xiaoyao, this thing is too precious. It should be useful to you, right? The first person Jiang Shengyi thought of wasn't herself, but Zhang Xiaoyao. Don't mention it. It's not very useful to me. Zhang Xiaoyao smiled. Jiang Shengyi took it and checked it a little. She was pleasantly surprised. It's the enlightenment of Chaos Dao Master. Even Jiang Shengyi couldn't help but exclaim. This was the comprehension of the Chaos Dao Sovereign, who was at the top of the 7 sovereign realms. Previously, when Wang Ting wanted to woo her, he had even taken out the great celestial venerate's insights. He thought that it was something precious and amazing. But compared to the Chaos Holy Man's comprehension, it was nothing. Wang Ting looked as though he was taking out a peerless treasure. On the other hand, Zhang Xiaoyao took out the insights of the Chaos Holy Man as if it were a small gift. Comparing the breadth of mind between the two, there was a clear gap. Jiang Shengyi's heart was filled with sweetness, and her immortal face seemed to be covered in a layer of radiance. At this moment, a somewhat sour voice sounded. What about me? Jiang Luoli stood between Jiang Shengyi and Zhang Xiaoyao, looking at Zhang Xiaoyao pitifully. A world-famous painting was born. Of course you have one too. Zhang Xiaoyao took out a piece of divine spiritual wood. I knew Big Brother Xiaoyao was the best. Jiang Luoli happily said. You all have one too. Zhang Xiaoyao looked at the various sequences, as well as the Jiang family that had helped the Zhang family, as well as the other influences. Zhang Xiaoyao had obtained many treasures at the immortal ancient Dao lakes. At this time, he wasn't stingy and shared a portion of them. Since these influences were willing to stand by the Zhang family and help them, Zhang Xiaoyao naturally wouldn't be stingy. Moreover, this was also a method to win over the hearts of others. I have one too. Xiao Moxian placed her hands behind her back, giggling as she leaned forward. I have to thank you this time as well. Zhang Xiaoyao said. At the same time, he took out a rare treasure and gave it to Xiao Moxian. No matter how great of a role Xiao Moxian had played in this war, at least she was willing to help. This represented many things. Thank you, little big brother Xiaoyao. I wanted to test your strengths and weaknesses before, but now it seems that I was overestimating myself. Little big brother Xiaoyao is big and tall. Xiao Moxian said, her words like a tiger. It's good that you know. Don't try to figure out a man's strengths and weaknesses, and especially don't try to figure out mine, because I have no limits. Zhang Xiaoyao indifferently said. I know. I won't dare to. Xiao Moxian pouted. Xiao Moxian, who was originally a bit perverted, had finally met her match. Looking at those high and lofty fairies of the great sects, the princesses of the Jin dynasty, the Holy Land saintesses, all of them, 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 all of them trying to speak to Jun Xiaoyao. All of the men present couldn't help but reveal a trace of envy. If only I had even a 10,000th of Lord Son of God's charm. Lei Mingyuan said, his heart filled with envy. That's right, Xiaoyao, this is the young king of the beauty race, Li Qiushirei. She also played a great role this time. Jiang Shengyi said. Li Qiushirei stepped forwards, her limpid eyes filled with awe. She bowed towards Jun Xiaoyao. Seeing is believing. Jun family's son of God, you truly live up to your reputation. Qiushirei is filled with admiration. Li Qiushirei respectfully said. Although she was one of the 4 young kings of Immortal Ancient, when she faced Jun Xiaoyao, her attitude was extremely humble. She didn't dare to show the slightest bit of disrespect. It seems that the races of Immortal Ancient aren't all brainless individuals. I must thank you this time as well. Jun Xiaoyao said. That was because Ao Guang and the others had eyes but couldn't see. They dared to provoke the Son of God. They were simply seeking their own deaths. Li Qiushirei laughed. All right, just tell me what you want. In Immortal Ancient, there shouldn't be anything that this Son of God can't do. Jun Xiaoyao said. He could tell that Li Qiushirei had something she wanted. However, it didn't matter. Jun Xiaoyao liked smart people. Li Qiushirei had chosen the right side, so there would naturally be a reward. It's like this. Li Qiushirei said. She also told Jun Xiaoyao about the Heaven-Forbidden Lands and the Immortal Ancient Order. I see. Entering the Heaven-Forbidden Lands and using the Immortal Ancient Order to seek freedom? No problem, I'll make a trip there later. Jun Xiaoyao said. The core of the Immortal Ancient World was the ancient spiritual earth. And the core of the ancient spiritual earth was the Heaven-Forbidden Lands. That was an extremely mysterious place. Jun Xiaoyao was also somewhat interested. Qiushirei thanks the Son of God for helping me. Li Qiushirei's eyes were also filled with surprise. She finally understood why Jun Xiaoyao was so attractive. Not only was he handsome, but his strength was also top-notch. He didn't care about his identity and treated the people on her side with great care. He was gentle and elegant. Which woman wouldn't fall in love with such a man? If she didn't know about Jiang Shengyi's feelings, Li Qiushirei would probably be tempted. All right, everyone is more or less injured. Just rest for a while. Jun Xiaoyao said. Now, the Immortal Ancient World was no longer a threat to Jun Xiaoyao. No one dared to compete with the Jun family for the opportunity. So there was no need to rush. After recovering from their injuries, they could slowly search for the opportunity. Yes. Everyone present nodded. Jun Xiaoyao was the absolute core. His words were also the absolute command. In the following period of time, the more seriously injured Lord Grimm, Jun Wushuang, Jun Mulan, and the others also began to rest. The spoils of war they obtained were also extremely plentiful. For example, the supreme weapon left by the Underworld Prince, the Underworld King's Claw, Jun Xiaoyao gave it to Yang Qingying. Jun Xiaoyao also gave the rest of the treasures and divine weapons to the others. In the Immortal Ancient World, I am completely invincible. What I need to do next is just to get rid of those 2 ants. Jun Xiaoyao thought to himself. Those 2 ants were naturally Wang Teng and Long Outyen. Just as Jun Xiaoyao was thinking about it, a voice suddenly rang out. He suddenly felt some kind of fluctuation. Jun Xiaoyao opened his spatial device and saw something trembling slightly. Is this the bronze compass? Jun Xiaoyao's eyes lit up. Did this mean that one of the legendary 7 incredible things, the Bronze Immortal Palace, was about to appear? Chapter 465. Jun Xiaoyao couldn't forget about the Bronze Immortal Palace. After all, he still had the opportunity to sign in at the Bronze Immortal Palace. Jun Xiaoyao was also very curious about what kind of treasures he could get from signing in such a dangerous place like the Bronze Immortal Palace. However, as one of the 7 incredible places, the danger of the Bronze Immortal Palace was obviously self-evident. Although Jun Xiaoyao had an invincible Dao heart, he wasn't a reckless person. If the bronze immortal palace really appeared, Jun Xiaoyaro still had to consider it. However, he didn't have any fear, only curiosity. Jun Xiaoyaro didn't tell anyone about this for the time being. Because sooner or later, everyone would know. The only suspense was when the bronze immortal palace would appear. However, Jun Xiaoyaro had the bronze compass. If the bronze immortal palace really appeared, he would definitely be able to sense it immediately. Jun Xiaoyaro also had a hunch that after the bronze immortal palace appeared, the entire immortal ancient world would be about to close. However, the immortal ancient world was just the prelude. The real highlight was still the Emperor Road. Jun Xiaoyaro now had the upper hand and could be considered invincible in the immortal ancient world. Jun Xiaoyaro was also confident that he would still be invincible in the Emperor Road. Next, half a month passed. Lord Grimm and the others' injuries recovered very quickly. Jun Xiaoyaro, on the other hand, did not stay idle during this time. He began to comprehend the second volume of the body book. There was no doubt that the body book was helpful to Jun Xiaoyaro. Not only did it push his physical body to the extreme, but it also helped him cultivate a body immortal qi in advance. Therefore, Jun Xiaoyaro was also very curious about what surprises the second volume of the body book would bring him. Even if an ordinary person obtained the 9 great heavenly books, it would take a long time for them to comprehend it. For example, Long Outyen had obtained half of the space book, but he was still only at the entry level. However, Jun Xiaoyaro was different. His perception was so strong that he could create his own exceptional mystical ability. Thus, it would only take him a little more effort and time to comprehend the body book. After comprehending it for a while, Jun Xiaoyao's eyes revealed a wisp of surprise and he sighed. This was because the cultivation method of the second volume of the Physique scripture had left him in awe. There were trillions of cells in the human body. The cultivation method of the second volume of the Physique scripture was to cultivate the cells and condense them into the 3,000 Sumeru worlds. Every time Jun Xiaoyaro cultivated a Sumeru world, he would possess the power of a world. If the 3,000 Sumeru worlds were formed, the power of the 3,000 Sumeru worlds would erupt with a single movement. At that time, even if it was a continent in the lower realm, it would probably be shattered by Jun Xiaoyao's punch. Not only that, but the 3,000 Sumeru worlds was also a supreme defensive technique. If the enemy's attack landed on Jun Xiaoyaro, it would be weakened by the 3,000 Sumeru worlds. The power of the attack would have to be strong enough to break through the 3,000 Sumeru worlds before it could truly hurt Jun Xiaoyao. However, how many people were strong enough to break through the 3,000 Sumeru worlds with a single move? Just thinking about it made one feel incredulous. This is too strong. In terms of attack, the power of the 3,000 Sumeru worlds would erupt with a single movement. In terms of defense, the enemy would also have to break through the 3,000 Sumeru worlds before they could hurt him. Even with Jun Xiaoyao's harsh judgment, he could only sigh at this moment. Even in the Jun family, there was no such terrifying and powerful cultivation method of the physical body. More importantly, cultivating to the 3,000 Sumeru worlds was only the great accomplishment. After the great accomplishment, there was still the perfection. At that time, every cell in Jun Xiaoyao's body would be a Sumeru world. At that state, Jun Xiaoyao's physical body would no longer be a simple body of flesh and blood. It would be like a body that contained the endless universe. Jun Xiaoyao even felt that if he reached that perfect state, it would be almost impossible for even a real immortal to destroy his physical body, let alone a great emperor. Too strong. This was the only thought in Jun Xiaoyao's mind. Putting the perfection stage aside for now. Even if it was the great accomplishment stage and the 3,000 Sumeru worlds formed, it would be enough to sweep through everything. The immortal Deluo immortal body cultivates the bones, while the 3,000 Sumeru worlds cultivates the cells, flesh, and blood. If I completely cultivate it and combine it, my physical body will be unparalleled and indestructible throughout history. Jun Xiaoyao was overwhelmed with emotions. The 9 great heavenly tomes represented the 9 extreme paths. Now it seemed that the 9 great heavenly tomes lived up to their reputation. It was no wonder that so many people were scrambling for the 9 great heavenly tomes. Of course, This cultivation method sounded very powerful, but it was not that simple to cultivate it successfully. Cultivating a Sumeru world in one's body was very difficult. It would not be that simple. The resources that would be consumed were also unimaginable. Even the supreme-grade immortal source, the origin of the Tao, and other top cultivation resources would not be able to completely cultivate a Sumeru world. The resources needed were much more than refining the immortal bone of the great heavenly immortal. It might require a huge amount of supreme-grade immortal source and origin of the Tao to cultivate a Sumeru world. However, there were also other rare treasures that could speed up the process. For example, the legendary chaotic qi, the blood of a remnant immortal, the Xianhuang mother qi, the origin of the sacred spirit, and so on. Of course, these were all rare and precious treasures. Their value was far beyond that of immortal source and origin of the Tao. Some ordinary geniuses might not even see any of these treasures in their entire lives. Jun Xiaoyao did not feel too much pressure. At this time, the benefits of being born in a top clan of the ancients were reflected. The Jun family also had some of these rare treasures. Although there were not many of them, it was enough for Jun Xiaoyao to start cultivating. After comprehending the second half of the body scripture, Jun Xiaoyao was not in a hurry to cultivate. He still had things to do. Next, when the others have recovered from their injuries, I will enter the heaven-forbidden ruins and help Li Qiushui find the immortal ancient token. At the same time, I will look for some opportunities. Then, I can quietly wait for the bronze immortal palace to appear. Jun Xiaoyao thought about his next plan. Not long after, everyone's injuries were more or less healed. After everyone had rested, Jun Xiaoyao led everyone directly to the heaven-forbidden ruins in the depths of the ancient spiritual land. Compared to the opportunities in the ancient spiritual land, the heaven-forbidden ruins obviously had more opportunities. Of course, it was also more dangerous. All kinds of archaic descendants and pure-blooded creatures roamed freely in the heaven-forbidden ruins. Ordinary ancient freaks did not dare to casually enter, as they might encounter great danger. However, the geniuses of the Jun family, Jiang family, and other forces did not mind at all. Their faces were relaxed. With Jun Xiaoyao around, even if they wanted to be in danger, it would be difficult. Li Qiushui did not enter. The creatures of the immortal ancient could not enter the heaven-forbidden ruins. Then I will have to trouble you, young Master Jun. Li Qiushui's beautiful eyes were filled with anticipation. They had been trapped in the immortal ancient world for too long. Like birds in a cage, they longed for freedom too much. Don't worry. I, the son of God, am a man of my word, Jun Xiaoyao said. Finding the immortal ancient token was just a matter of convenience. Leisurely literature, let the soul travel. Chapter 466. Jun Xiaoyao and the others entered the heaven taboo ruins. As far as the eye could see, the mountains and rivers were ancient and filled with a desolate aura. Jun Xiaoyao sensed that the bronze compass in the spatial artifact seemed to be trembling more and more violently. Could it be? Jun Xiaoyao came to a realization. Then, they began to explore the heaven taboo ruins. Not long after, they encountered a terrifying primordial remnant whose strength had reached the Tao God realm. It was a strange snake with one head and two bodies. It spat out raging fire that was enough to burn an ordinary heavenly God realm expert to ashes. Some heavenly God realm ancient freaks might be difficult to deal with. Jun Xiaoyao, on the other hand, simply threw a slap at him. Runes of the Great Path intertwined and turned him into minced meat. Simple, straightforward, and fierce. The surrounding people swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and then their eyes revealed excitement. If they followed Jun Xiaoyao, they could really do whatever they wanted. Soon, the crowd discovered a land of opportunity, and people began to explore it. Jun Xiaoyao, on the other hand, was not all that interested. Now, his mind was full of the bronze immortal palace. Compared to the bronze immortal palace, the other opportunities were nothing. Next, the group continued to travel and found many opportunities. However, the atmosphere was very harmonious. There was no fighting, and everyone could gain something. Jun Xiaoyao did not go looking for any treasures. To him at the moment, Only some rare treasures of the world or items of the ages would be able to catch his attention. It didn't take long for Jun Xiaoyaro to find a cave. There was a pure-blooded creature, the Dark Knight Golden Bat. The strength of this pure-blooded creature, even in the Tao God realm, was extremely strong. Jun Xiaoyaro attacked, activating a trace of the power of the immortal Deluo immortal body, and killed it cleanly. Then, in the cave, Jun Xiaoyaro found a jade token. This token was incomparably warm, and there seemed to be a faint wisp of soul power hidden in it, like a wisp of consciousness. Is this the immortal ancient token? Jun Xiaoyaro sized it up. This immortal ancient medallion contained a wisp of soul energy fluctuations, as if it contained some kind of will. The entire immortal ancient world is a cage, Jun Xiaoyaro murmured to himself. As for the immortal ancient medallion. After that, Jun Xiaoyaro killed a few more vicious beasts and found a few immortal ancient badges. He handed these immortal ancient tokens to Jiang Shengyi. Sister Shengyi, you can give these immortal ancient badges to Li Qiushire later, Jun Xiaoyaro said. Understood. Jiang Shengyi accepted the immortal ancient order. After that, everyone continued to search for opportunities. Jun Xiaoyaro, on the other hand, was not very interested. About half a month later. Suddenly, one day, the entire immortal ancient world seemed to tremble slightly. The spiritual qi between heaven and earth seemed to have been disturbed. The entire ancient spiritual land buzzed and trembled. The entire firmament was shaking. What's going on? Could it be that the immortal ancient world is about to close? Many geniuses around the ancient spiritual land raised their heads and glanced upward. Following this, they witnessed an unforgettable sight. An incomparably huge and majestic bronze palace appeared in the void. It was like an immemorial divine mountain that stretched across the heavens. The geniuses stared with their eyes open wide. They almost held their breaths. The magnificent bronze palace was extremely ancient, with a desolate aura. Its surface was covered in a greenish copper color, with patches of rust, as if it had been washed and baptized by time. It was like the reflection of the ancient times had appeared in the present world. That's one of the 7 wonders, the bronze immortal palace. It actually appeared in the ancient spiritual land. Many geniuses blurted out in astonishment. The 7 wonders were the 7 legends of the 9 heavens immortal realm. Even though not everyone had seen them before, most of them had heard of them. At this moment, the bronze mountain-like palace in the sky looked exactly the same as the legendary bronze immortal palace. The bronze immortal palace, rumors say it's related to immortals. It's a great fortunate encounter. It's a great fortunate encounter. You have to be alive to claim the fortunate encounter. Many experts have entered the bronze immortal palace, but they never came out. I don't dare to go any closer. The appearance of the bronze immortal palace had pushed the atmosphere of the immortal ancient world to its climax. Somewhere in the ancient spiritual land, damn it, what should I do now? Am I, Long Aotian, going to be suppressed by that Jun Xiaoyaro forever? Long Aotian, who had just escaped war, a twisted expression. He was extremely unwilling to accept the outcome. Not only had the Kingslayer's plan failed, the people close to him were all dead too. Long Aotian's hatred toward Jun Xiaoyaro was so strong that even the water of the 4 oceans could not wash it away. No. I, Long Aotian, am the son of destiny. How can I admit defeat like this? Long Aotian was unwilling to accept the outcome. His destiny was to not believe in destiny. Long Aotian's will was to alter his destiny. He believed that as long as he did not give up, he would eventually have a chance to turn the tables around. Meanwhile, the vibration in the sky caught Long Aotian's attention. That's the bronze immortal palace. Long Aotian was shocked. As the forbidden first talent of Zulong, he was naturally familiar with the 7 wonders. The 7 wonders are extremely dangerous. If one is tainted by karma, there's a high chance of dying. However, this is also a chance. Long Aotian's eyes were burning with flames. The bronze immortal palace was his only chance to turn the tables around. If he gave it his all, he might be able to obtain a heaven-defying opportunity. When that happened, even Jun Xiaoyaro would not be his match. I'll give it my all. It's just one life. If I'm suppressed by Jun Xiaoyaro in this life, I'll suffer a fate worse than death. One had to admit that Long Aotian indeed had the demeanor of a main character. He was also very courageous. His eyes were filled with determination as he shuttled through the void and left. On the other side, Wang Teng, who had escaped, also saw the Bronze Immortal Palace. The Bronze Immortal Palace. There's almost no chance of survival after entering it, but I'm not afraid. Wang Teng was also a prideful person. He could not bear the humiliation of being completely suppressed by Jun Xiaoyaro. Rather than being laughed at by the world, it was better to risk his life. He might even be able to fight for a future. Wang Teng also made up his mind as he left in a flash. Jun Xiaoyaro and the others naturally noticed it too. The Bronze Immortal Palace has actually appeared in the immortal ancient world. Lord Grimm and the others were also surprised. On the other hand, Jun Xiaoyaro looked calm. He had already expected this. As the Bronze Immortal Palace appeared, a terrifying aura immediately enveloped the entire ancient spiritual land. Geniuses whose cultivation was at true God realm would even have a feeling of suffocation. Even the heavenly God realm prodigies felt an extreme sense of danger and foreboding. The seven wonders are all dangerous and ominous. Ordinary people can't wait to avoid them. Although there are opportunities in the Bronze Immortal Palace, it's also dangerous. Not many people would dare to enter it. Jun Lingsang shook his head slightly. It was not appropriate to enter the Bronze Immortal Palace for some illusory legends. Jun Xiaoyaro had already made up his mind. Jun Xiaoyaro would enter the Bronze Immortal Palace even if it was just for checking in. At this moment, something in the depths of the ancient spiritual mountain seemed to be attracted by the Bronze Immortal Palace and rose into the sky. That's all. The geniuses looked over. Chapter 467. It was a ball of soul light that was as vigorous as the sun, rising from the depths of the ancient spiritual mountain. The ball of soul light not only contained an unimaginable amount of soul power, but its surface was also intertwined with Tao laws. These Tao laws seemed to be exactly the same as the Tao laws of the entire immortal ancient world. That is, Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were deep. He could sense that the soul energy fluctuations coming from the ball of soul light were very similar to the soul energy fluctuations coming from the immortal ancient medallion. At the same time, the ancestral lands of the various immortal ancient races were greatly shaken. Many ancient ancestors who had been sleeping for countless years were disturbed and awakened, emitting an unparalleled pressure. That is, the immortal ancient spirit. It is being guided by the Bronze Immortal Palace. Is the will of the immortal ancient world going to be suppressed by the Bronze Immortal Palace? Then we will never be able to leave. In the ancestral land of the dragon human race, a dragon human race ancestor was roaring. In the ancient sorcerer race, there were also ancestors who had awakened from their slumber. When they saw this scene, their expressions changed greatly. Why? Why do we have to suffer after such a long time? An ancient ancestor of the three-eyed sacred race roared angrily. If the immortal ancient spirit was suppressed in the Bronze Immortal Palace, then they would never be able to leave the immortal ancient world. The angry roars of the ancient ancestors caused the entire immortal ancient world to rumble and tremble, as if doomsday had arrived. Many geniuses were terrified and even began to retreat toward the edge of the immortal ancient world. Most people did not want to be involved with the Bronze Immortal Palace. Could that be the immortal ancient spirit? Lord Grimm looked at the ball of soul light and said in surprise. As a slumbering ancient freak, he knew a lot more than others. I would like to hear the details, Jun Xiaoyaro said. Then, Lord Grimm told Jun Xiaoyaro everything he knew. The so-called immortal ancient spirit could also be seen as the will of the immortal ancient world. The rules of the entire immortal ancient world were set by it. However, in the beginning, the purpose of the immortal ancient world was not to be used for the younger generation of geniuses to gain experience. It should be called the immortal ancient prison. Indeed, it is the same as recorded in historical records, Jun Xiaoyaro said. He had a little understanding of the immortal ancient world before. In fact, it was similar to a prison. The ancestors of these immortal ancient clans had all committed great crimes. In the end, their entire clans were locked up in this place. I've heard that the great crimes these immortal ancient clans committed before seemed to be related to the other side. Lord Grimm said. Jun Xiaoyao finally understood what was going on. These immortal ancient tribes were actually the sinners of the Nine Heavens immortal realm. Their ancestors must have betrayed the Nine Heavens immortal realm and sided with the foreign realm, thus they were banished to the immortal ancient cages. Then the spirit of the immortal ancient, or the will of the immortal ancient world, is equivalent to a supervisor. Jun Xiaoyao understood. That's right. Lord Grimm nodded. Jun Xiaoyao finally understood. If the clans of immortal ancient were prisoners in a prison, in that case, the will of the immortal ancient world was the guardian. As for why the immortal ancient spirits were suppressed by the bronze immortal palace, the old ancestors of the immortal ancient clans would be furious. It was because the immortal ancient spirits were able to imprison them. Perhaps they would be set free at some point in the future. But now, if the immortal ancient spirits were sealed inside the bronze immortal palace, didn't that mean they had no chance of escaping? No wonder the old ancestors of the immortal ancient clans were enraged. Rumble. The immortal ancient spirit was like a white sun that was suppressed into the bronze immortal palace. The immortal ancient clans fell into despair. Currently, apart from the immortal ancient clans with the immortal ancient badges, the rest of the immortal ancient clans could no longer leave the immortal ancient world. The reason being that only the immortal ancient badges contained a hint of the will of the immortal ancient world. The bronze immortal palace floated in the sky above the ancient mystical land. It looked ancient and unfathomable. What should we do now? Many people were hesitating. This bronze immortal palace is too strange. I don't want to go any closer. Xiao Moxian shivered and shrunk her head. Even she, the saintess of the demonic celestial cult, kept a respectful distance from the bronze immortal palace. It is rumored that although there are opportunities in this bronze immortal palace, it is also strange. Even sacred lords would bleed if they entered, let alone us. Lord Grimm shook his head. Jun Lingsang's double pupils revolved. He wanted to investigate the bronze immortal palace, but he felt a stabbing pain in his eyes. He couldn't help but shed a tear of blood. The bronze immortal palace is too dangerous. I can't be tainted by karma. Jun Lingsang groaned, his face pale. Looking at Lord Grimm and the other Sky Prides were even more terrified. No one wanted to be tainted by karma with the bronze immortal palace. However, Jun Xiaoyao stepped into the bronze immortal palace. Xiaoyao, what are you doing? Big brother Xiaoyao, what are you doing? Seeing Jun Xiaoyao's actions, Jiang Shengyi, Jiang Luoli, and the others all cried out. I am somewhat interested in this bronze immortal palace. Jun Xiaoyao didn't have the slightest fear in his eyes. There was only curiosity. Moreover, Jun Xiaoyao wasn't so extravagant that he would casually give up an opportunity to sign in. Xiaoyao, this is one of the 7 wonders. If you are not careful, you will bleed. Don't go, Jiang Shengyi said nervously. Big brother Xiaoyao, don't go. That is not a place for people. Jiang Luoli also urged him to stay. Brother Xiaoyao, the bronze immortal palace is not a joke. With your talent and strength, there is no need to be so rash. Lord Grimm frowned slightly. With Jun Xiaoyao's talent, it was almost certain that he would become a saint ancestor or even prove his way in the future. There was no need to take the risk. He was also the most important person to the Jun family. Naturally, Lord Grimm didn't want anything to happen to Jun Xiaoyao. Thank you for your concern, but I am indeed curious about this bronze immortal palace. Jun Xiaoyao's expression was as calm as water. Curiosity killed the cat. Xiao Moxian muttered. She had just befriended Jun Xiaoyao. She didn't want him to die just like that. Xiao Moxian had wanted Jun Xiaoyao to protect her on the Emperor's Road. Am I a cat? Jun Xiaoyao smiled faintly. His words made everyone fall silent. Jun Xiaoyao could be said to be the #1 person among the younger generation of the Huangtian mystic realm. If there was anyone among the younger generation who was qualified to explore the bronze immortal palace, it was probably only Jun Xiaoyao. Then I will go with you. Jiang Shengyi stepped forward and said. Me too. Jiang Luoli raised her small hand. No need. I alone am enough. I should be able to protect myself. But it's hard to say if I bring you guys along, Jun Xiaoyaro said. He was confident in himself, but he couldn't guarantee that the others would be able to come out alive. All right, it's settled. I will go in alone. None of you. Jun Xiaoyao's tone was firm. Seeing this, Lord Grim and the others stopped trying to persuade him. Xiaoyao. I will wait for you. Jiang Shengyi looked at Jun Xiaoyaro deeply. Yeah. Jun Xiaoyaro smiled and stepped into the Bronze Divine Hall as if he was taking a stroll in the park. Chapter 468. The appearance of the Bronze Immortal Palace not only stirred up waves in the immortal ancient world. In the outside world, beside the immortal ancient mirror, many big shots couldn't help but widen their eyes and exclaim. One of the 7 wonders, the Bronze Immortal Palace, has appeared. Rumor has it that the Bronze Immortal Palace is related to a taboo figure in ancient times and is tainted with inauspiciousness. The Bronze Immortal Palace was feared. Even Supremes didn't dare to enter it casually, as they might encounter a great calamity. However, the next moment, someone exclaimed, "That's the son of God of the Jun family. He's approaching the Bronze Immortal Palace? No way. Is the son of God of the Jun family going to enter the Bronze Immortal Palace?" Jun Xiaoyao's action was undoubtedly a huge rock thrown into the sea, stirring up shocking waves. That was a forbidden place that even top powerhouses didn't dare to enter casually, but Jun Xiaoyaro was approaching it casually. Xiaoyao. Jun Zhantian and the others clenched their fists slightly. It was impossible to say that they weren't worried. Believe in Xiaoyaro, an elder said. Humph. Who cares about the 7 wonders? If something happens to Xiaoyaro, we will split open the immortal ancient world and destroy the Bronze Immortal Palace even if we have to awaken the ancestors in the ancestral temple. Another elder of the Jun family said domineeringly. The 7 wonders were strange. However, the Jun family was not to be trifled with. If they forced the Jun family into a corner, they would break the so-called Immortal Palace even if they were tainted with great karma. For the Jun family, this was not something that they couldn't do. Hearing the words of the elders, Jun Zhantian's face also calmed down a little. Don't worry. Xiaoyaro has won glory for the Jun family and done so many things. The ancestors won't let anything happen to him, an elder said. Jun Xiaoyaro was now a hero of the Jun family and one of the Jun family's hopes. Those great ancestors naturally paid close attention to Jun Xiaoyaro as well, making sure that nothing bad would happen to him. Compared to the Jun Xiaoyaro, the people from the other forces obviously didn't think that Jun Xiaoyaro could survive in the Bronze Immortal Hall. Sigh, isn't it better for the son of God of the Jun family to live a peaceful life as a legend? Why must he put himself in danger? Who knows? The son of God of the Jun family is going all out. Isn't it too early to say this? When the Jun family's son of God entered the eternal burial ground, didn't some people also say that he would die there? In the end, didn't they still get slapped in the face? There were also some who disagreed. That's different from this one. This is one of the 7 great inconceivable worlds. Even supreme beings would die if they entered. Discussions were taking place in all directions. As for Zulong, Wanhuang Spirit Mountain, Chilean Ancient Cave, Fallen God Palace, and other forces, they naturally hoped that Jun Xiaoyaro would perish inside. They weren't the only ones. Many geniuses in the immortal ancient world also saw Jun Xiaoyao's actions. Many people secretly hoped that Jun Xiaoyaro wouldn't come out after entering the Bronze Immortal Hall. Jun Xiaoyao's existence was like a mountain that pressed down on the heads of all the geniuses. Only with his death would the other geniuses have hope in this generation's battle of heavenly fate. Jun Xiaoyao, are you being reckless, or are you really confident? On a mountain peak, Ji Qingyi's eyes were deep. Beside her, Ji Changkong shook his head and said, I do admire Jun Xiaoyao, but it's a pity that he's being too reckless. Even an ancient freak like him kept a respectful distance from the Bronze Immortal Hall. Jun Xiaoyaro was indeed a newborn calf that wasn't afraid of a tiger. Under everyone's gaze, Jun Xiaoyao's figure directly stepped into the Bronze Immortal Hall. Of course, there were also a few geniuses who wanted to enter the Bronze Immortal Hall. But before they could even get close to the Bronze Immortal Hall, their bodies were crushed by the terrifying pressure. Ordinary geniuses couldn't even get close to the bronze immortal hall. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in the void and entered the bronze immortal hall from another direction. It's Zulong's forbidden first generation, Long Outyen. Although it was just a flash, it was still caught by others. On the other side, another figure entered the bronze immortal hall without hesitation. It's the Wang family's young master, Wang Ting. Another exclamation sounded. No one expected that three geniuses would enter the bronze immortal hall at the same time. The two of them actually went in. Do we have to go in too? Zhun Mulan asked worriedly. It's fine. With cousin Xiaoyao's strength, the two of them won't be a threat. I'm just worried about the bronze immortal hall itself. Zhun Lingcang shook his head. The likes of Long Ao and Wang Ting were nothing more than clowns to the current Zhun Xiaoyao. The bronze immortal hall itself was the biggest threat. Just as the immortal ancient world and the outside world were discussing, Zhun Xiaoyao had already entered the bronze immortal hall. As soon as he entered the immortal hall, the surrounding environment was as cold as water. It was as silent as the deep sea. Those who weren't mentally strong might really be scared out of their wits. Zhun Xiaoyao stood with his hands behind his back. His expression was calm, and his body was surrounded by immortal light, illuminating the place. The empty and desolate hall was as silent as the universe, sealed in dust for eternity. There's no sign notification yet. It seems that I have to go deeper, Zhun Xiaoyao thought to himself. As he moved forward, he sized up the surrounding environment. In front of him, a few skeletons appeared. Zhun Xiaoyao stepped forward. As soon as he touched them, the skeletons turned into dust. Judging from these bones, they should be at least above the supreme sage level. However, the remains still can't withstand the erosion of time, Zhun Xiaoyao murmured. He continued to move forward. Some more skeletons appeared in front of him. In addition, there were all kinds of relics, including many supreme artifacts. Unfortunately, those divine artifacts turned into dust upon contact like the skeletons. Even the supreme artifacts can't withstand the erosion of time, but my body can, Zhun Xiaoyao said. He had the immortal body of the zenith heaven. If he cultivated the 3,000 Sumeru worlds in the future, then his body would exist with the world and be completely indestructible. Just as Zhun Xiaoyao was thinking, he suddenly discovered that there were dark red mottled blood stains on the wall of the hall in front of him. Some words were written on it. May I ask if there are immortals in the heavens? Zhun Xiaoyao murmured. He shook his head slightly. Becoming an immortal was the obsession in the hearts of all powerhouses. Those who died in the bronze immortal hall all had the obsession of becoming an immortal. They wanted to see the secrets of the bronze immortal hall. Zhun Xiaoyao didn't have such an obsession, because for him, becoming an immortal was an inevitable result. If Zhun Xiaoyao wasn't qualified to become an immortal, then no one else in the world was qualified to become an immortal. Zhun Xiaoyao didn't care about becoming an immortal. He was just curious. Who created this bronze immortal hall? How could it become one of the 7 incredible worlds? Just as Zhun Xiaoyao was thinking, the entire bronze immortal hall suddenly trembled slightly. A terrifying chaotic fog surged in front of him. Every wisp was enough to easily kill a saint. If this large amount of chaotic fog was used, even a saint lord would bleed. There was no suspense. Chapter 469. Zhun Xiaoyao had guessed that the bronze immortal palace would be dangerous, but he did not expect to encounter such danger as soon as he stepped in. The chaotic mist seemed to have surged from the depths of the universe, causing the stars to fall and everything to die. However, Zhun Xiaoyao did not panic, as he had a lot of defensive treasures with him. Zhun Xiaoyao had already sensed it when he stepped into the bronze immortal palace. The bronze immortal palace was not bound by the rules of the immortal ancient world. In other words, Zhun Xiaoyao's protective treasures could all be put to good use in the bronze immortal palace. Zhun Xiaoyao took out a broken ancient sword casually. It was a treasure given to him by Jiang Daoshu. There was also a broken ancient armor and a broken bronze bell. They were given to him by the 18th ancestor and the others. The broken ancient armor then unleashed a ball of light that shrouded Zhun Xiaoyao, shielding him from the danger. There was also a broken bronze bell that floated above Zhang Xiaoyao's head. It vibrated slightly, and the sound of the bell spread out, scattering the mist around. It could be said that Zhang Xiaoyao was a full set of divine equipment. As the apple of the eye of the two clans of the ancients, it was only natural that Zhang Xiaoyao had a lot of protective items on him. Each and every one of them had a great history. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The broken ancient sword vibrated, and a vast sword light slashed through the chaotic mist in front of them. Zhang Xiaoyao continued to move forward with the three ancient weapons protecting him. On the other hand, Long Aotian and Wang Ting also started to go deeper through other passages. They also encountered all kinds of dangers, but they also had protective treasures given to them by the Zulong and the Wang family in the north. The chaotic mist that was enough to make a sacred lord bleed in despair could not cause any harm to Zhang Xiaoyao. Of course, Zhang Xiaoyao did not let his guard down. The bronze immortal palace was definitely not only strange. There was a Tai Chi yin-yang pattern on the door. It was half yin and half yang. "Is this the gate of life and death?" Zhang Xiaoyao said. He had also heard rumors that within the bronze immortal palace, there was a gate of life and death. It was like the king of hell, judging life and death. On top of that, both of them were protagonists of destiny and possessed great luck. Thus, the journey was more daunting than dangerous. After walking for a quarter of an hour, Zhang Xiaoyao stopped. A door appeared in front of them. If it were an ordinary person, they would not hesitate to choose the life gate. Some intelligent people would choose the death gate. Because life and death coexist. Life is death, and death is life. Half of the life gate exuded a peaceful aura. The other half of the death gate exuded a cold aura of death, as if it was the entrance to the underworld. After arriving at this door, it was time to make a choice. No matter who gave him a choice, he wouldn't even spare a glance. Zhang Xiaoyao activated the broken ancient sword and slashed at the gate of life and death. The broken ancient sword erupted with a shocking sword aura, as if it could slice through the stars in the sky. However, Zhang Xiaoyao was different from everyone else. A multiple-choice question. Unfortunately, I, Zhang Xiaoyao, never make a choice. I only walk the path I want to walk. Zhang Xiaoyao smiled faintly. What was beneath his feet was both a path and a path. The gate of life and death trembled violently and collapsed with a loud bang. A terrifying aura exploded forth, causing the three ancient artifacts to tremble violently. More cracks appeared on their surfaces. The bronze immortal palace is indeed filled with danger. It seems like these three ancient artifacts won't be able to hold on for too long. Zhang Xiaoyao pondered. This ancient sword was bestowed to him by Jiang Daoshu. It was the sword of one of the Jiang family's ancestors and was tainted with endless killing intent. As the sword slashed down, the gate of life and death rumbled and trembled. Then, the broken ancient armor, broken copper bell, and other ancient artifacts emitted light and suppressed. A door seemed to have appeared in front of them. It was the door to becoming an immortal. There seemed to be a voice reverberating in Zhang Xiaoyao's mind. Open that door, and you can become an immortal. Clang, clang, clang. After the gate of life and death was blasted open, there was still a misty chaos ahead. Vaguely, there seemed to be a misty immortal light and the sound of the great Tao reverberating, making one feel as if they were about to be enlightened. Zhang Xiaoyao walked forward step by step as if he did not feel anything. There were many corpses around him. Some were withered corpses, while others had turned into white bones. There was a strong sense of unwillingness and resentment in the air. What appeared in front of Zhang Xiaoyao was no longer the door to becoming an immortal, but a mottled wall stained with blood and covered in rust. At that moment, the broken copper bell floating above Zhang Xiaoyao's head let out a hurried jingle all of a sudden. Zhang Xiaoyao's mind shook as if he had woken up from a nightmare. All the immortal light in front of him disappeared instantly. The door shrouded in immortal qi also disappeared. That was close. This place is strange. Even with the uniqueness of my primordial spirit, I was almost bewitched. Zhang Xiaoyao also sighed. This bronze immortal palace was truly worthy of being one of the 7 inconceivable wonders. It was indeed extremely strange. I guess most of these corpses must have been bewitched. Jun Xiaoyao thought to himself. On the wall, there was the word immortal drawn with dark red blood. It was emitting a terrifying resentment and an ominous feeling. Jun Xiaoyao's hand was about to touch the character for Xian. If he touched it, it would not be a good thing. At the same time, in another area of the Bronze Immortal Palace, Long Aotian also came to a place full of corpses. A demonic voice echoed in Long Aotian's mind. Suddenly, Jun Xiaoyao seemed to hear a little girl's laughter. The little girl's laughter was as bright as silver bells. However, it sounded strange and creepy in the Bronze Immortal Palace. Can't you give me something from the mortal realm? Jun Xiaoyao could not help but complain. Long Aotian's face was sometimes twisted and sometimes confused. In front of him, there was a corpse covered in scales. On the corpse's finger, there was a pitch-black dragon-shaped ring. Come. Aren't you unwilling to accept this? Do you have resentment in your heart? I will give you the power to destroy everything. There were many corpses in front of him. Suddenly, Wang Teng seemed to have discovered something. His eyes widened. That's... Wang Teng went forward and sensed something. Long Aotian could not help but reach out to take off the dragon-shaped ring and put it on his finger. In an instant, Long Aotian's body shook. There was a hint of evil in his eyes. In another place, Wang Teng was also protected by the Wang family's ancient weapon. His expression was also solemn. If this ancient talisman was in its complete form, it would definitely be an emperor weapon. Now, even though Wang Ting had only obtained a fragment, it still had astounding uses. He could not be wrong about the aura of an emperor weapon. It was a broken ancient talisman. It looked like only half of it was left. It was filled with an ancient aura. The faint aura it emitted made Wang Ting's eyes shine. This is the aura of an emperor weapon. Wang Ting's hand trembled slightly as he picked up the broken ancient talisman. As expected, the heavens do not want me to die. Jun Xiaoyao, the one who has the last laugh, is the winner. Wang Ting held the broken ancient talisman in his hand. His eyes shone again. Chapter 470. Long Aotian and Wang Ting both had the luck of protagonists. Even in the dangerous and strange Bronze Immortal Palace, they were able to avoid some dangers and find great opportunities. Jun Xiaoyao was still exploring in the Immortal Palace. From time to time, the little girl's bell-like laughter would ring in his ears. The laughter was supposed to be very sweet and pleasant, but in a place like the Bronze Immortal Palace, it sounded like the voice of the underworld. Of course, Jun Xiaoyao was not that timid. His sacred body of the ancients had the holy attribute of the purest yang. It could also suppress many evil curses, so he did not need to be too afraid. Jun Xiaoyao followed the little girl's laughter and began to go deeper. Along the way, there were bones all over the place. Since ancient times, how many strong masters have fallen in this Bronze Immortal Palace? Jun Xiaoyao saw the scene and could not help but sigh. At this moment, there was a sudden movement in front of him. That aura made the corner of Jun Xiaoyao's mouth curl into a faint smile. It was an old acquaintance. There was a figure in front of him who entered from another door. He also saw Jun Xiaoyao as soon as he came in. The two of them looked at each other and froze. Jun Xiaoyao. The person who came was Long Aotian. Jun Xiaoyao was not surprised that Long Aotian appeared in the Bronze Immortal Palace. In fact, it was within his expectations. What surprised him the most was that Long Aotian did not fear him as much as before when he saw him. There was only strong hatred in his eyes. Have you become confident again? Jun Xiaoyao sneered disdainfully. Long Aotian was enraged when he saw the smirk on Jun Xiaoyao's face. Jun Xiaoyao, this Bronze Immortal Palace will be your burial place. Long Aotian's aura surged, and a wicked cold light flashed in his eyes. The rain is over, and the sky is clear. Do you think you can do it again? Jun Xiaoyao responded with a sneer. The atmosphere was thick with the smell of gunpowder. Just as Long Aotian was about to make a move, another figure appeared at another door. There were 4 spirits revolving around him, and a powerful aura surged around him. It was Wang Ting. A strange look flashed past Wang Ting's eyes when he saw Jun Xiaoyao and Long Aotian. However, When he looked at Jun Xiaoyaro again, there was a deep chill in his eyes. He also wanted to kill Jun Xiaoyaro. Oh, everyone's here. One of them was the Wang clan's young emperor, while the other was the Zulong taboo first generation. It could be said that any genius from the Huangtian mystic realm would be flustered when facing these two. However, Jun Xiaoyao's expression was as calm as ever. His gaze was no different from looking at an ant beside his feet. Wang Ting's expression turned even colder. As the young emperor of the Wang family, he had never been looked down upon like this before. Let's go together. Long Aotian looked at Wang Ting. At this time, if he still cared about fighting one-on-one, it would be stupid and laughable. Yes, Jun Xiaoyaro must die here. Wang Ting's eyes were also filled with determination. Next, without wasting any time, the two of them directly attacked Jun Xiaoyaro. Long Aotian took out his supreme weapon, the Dragon Soul Blade, and slashed out with a mighty blade aura. Wang Ting also took out his golden sacred sword, and the blade aura swept out like a river. The blade aura and the blade aura intertwined, turning into a terrifying wave that suppressed Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao's expression was as usual. Around him, the broken ancient sword, broken ancient armor, old copper bell, and other artifacts began to tremble. Of course, with Wang Teng and Long Aotian's status, they naturally had their own protective ancient artifacts. They used their ancient artifacts to suppress Jun Xiaoyao's, and they kept each other in check, so they could not affect the situation of the battle. Jun Xiaoyao's expression was calm. If he still needed to use his ancient artifacts to deal with these two ants, it would be too much of a failure. Jun Xiaoyaro directly used his fingers as a sword and performed the sword chant of the immortal slayer. With his cultivation of the Dao God realm, the blade aura seemed to have turned into endless Dao runes, intertwining in the void and colliding with the blade aura and sword aura of the two. Boom! The entire bronze immortal palace seemed to tremble. Wang Teng and Long Aotian were both knocked back, spitting out small mouthfuls of blood. It was just a collision, but the two of them together could not block it and were injured. Is the gap between us already so big? Wang Ting gritted his teeth in disbelief. Previously, the cultivators of the immortal region had compared Jun Xiaoyaro to him on the same level. But now, it seemed that the two of them were not on the same level at all. It was not that Wang Ting had become weak, but that Jun Xiaoyaro was too strong. I don't believe that you are invincible. Wang Ting's eyes shot out 3 feet of divine light. A mysterious pattern that looked like an eye appeared above his head, as if it could see through the world. It was the heavenly eye of Martial Path. Once the heavenly eye of Martial Path was activated, it could see through the flaws of all Abhina. At the same time, Wang Ting performed his ultimate technique, the chaotic Sky Saint technique. Terrifying dharmic power swept out as if it could disrupt this part of the world. Long Aotian was not idle either. He also began to activate his blood of the Emperor Dragon. His aura rose steadily. In the end, he reached the perfected stage of the Celestial God Realm, only a fine line away from the Dao God Realm. As expected of the protagonist of the world. There is no lack of tricks like a small universe erupting at the last minute. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes revealed a hint of mockery. Unfortunately, in front of Jun Xiaoyao, even a dragon would have to coil up, and a tiger would have to lie down. Jun Xiaoyao pointed with his finger. Lightning runes crisscrossed in the air, forming a terrifyingly powerful finger of lightning. The Lightning Emperor's finger broke Wang Teng's chaotic Sky Saint technique, causing him to spit out blood. His chest was charred black. Jun Xiaoyao's other hand gathered the power of lightning between his 5 fingers, turning into lightning stars that suppressed Long Aotian. Divine Mark of Taishu. Long Aotian saw this and roared. The power of space fluctuated, and a dragon-shaped mark slashed out like a heavenly blade. It seemed to be able to cut through the sky. Is this the opportunity inheritance you have received? Seeing Long Aotian's move, Jun Xiaoyao shook his head. If Long Aotian had reached the Dao God realm, he might have been able to withstand a few more moves, but now, boom, along with a loud rumble, Long Aotian spat out blood, and the divine mark of Taishu was broken. It's over. Jun Xiaoyao was too lazy to torture the weak. In a flash, he activated the Lightning Emperor's great skill to kill Long Aotian and the others. I haven't lost yet. Emperor Dragon Armor. Long Aotian activated his small universe. The Emperor Dragon's blood was fully activated. He was clad in an extremely powerful armor, which seemed to be the strongest armor he had ever seen. Long Aotian's cultivation reached the Tao God realm for a short time. At the same time, Wang Ting also used his trump card. The power of the four spirits entered his body, and his cultivation broke through to the Tao God realm temporarily. Now, two Tao gods were fighting against Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao, can you still laugh? Long Aotian said coldly. Ridiculous. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were filled with pity. That was a kind of pity for the ignorant ants. Then, immortal light surged all over his body. He activated the Deluo immortal body. At the same time, a golden immortal chi with blood chi wrapped around his body like a dragon. It was the immortal chi of the physical body. The moment they saw the immortal chi, Wang Teng and Long Aotian's faces froze. Their minds went blank. Chapter 471. That aura is immortal chi. Wang Teng and Long Aotian's eyes widened. Their eyeballs almost popped out. They stared at the wisp of immortal chi wrapped around Jun Xiaoyao's body. Their hearts were in turmoil. Immortal chi. It was not a description. It was a real wisp of immortal chi. How is that possible? Didn't they say that only sky prides who had great opportunities on the Emperor Road could condense immortal chi? How did you manage to do it now? Even with Wang Teng's shrewd personality, he could not help but exclaim. The power of a wisp of immortal chi was extremely terrifying. On the Emperor Road, sky prides who managed to condense a wisp of immortal chi were usually able to crush the other sky prides. They were considered a small powerhouse on the Emperor Road. However, Jun Xiaoyao had already condensed a wisp of immortal chi before the Emperor Road even opened. Didn't that mean that Jun Xiaoyao had already become a powerhouse even before he entered the Emperor Road? Wang Teng and the others could not accept this. If outsiders knew that Jun Xiaoyao had already condensed immortal chi, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Long Aotian's eyes were also filled with shock. His expression was cold. Jun Xiaoyao's strength had exceeded his imagination time and time again. You know nothing about strength. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were filled with mockery and pity. If he was in Long Aotian's or Wang Ting's shoes, he would feel despair when he met an opponent like him. Let's attack together. Jun Xiaoyao must die. Long Aotian roared. Wearing the Emperor Dragon armor, his strength had temporarily reached the Tao God realm. He also used the ancient Void Dragon tribe's great superpower. Great Void Dragon Fist. Long Aotian threw a punch. Tao patterns intertwined and turned into a mighty fist light. It was as if an ancient dragon was roaring, shaking the void. Wang Teng was also using his trump card. He knew that if he did not use it now, he would not have the chance to do so. Tao cleaving art. Wang Ting held the golden sacred sword in his hand. With his heart as the sword, a mighty golden sword light swept out with a terrifying will of Tao cleaving art. The two of them had used all their trump cards and joined forces. Even the prince of the underworld deity would be severely injured if he were to face the two of them. However, Jun Xiaoyao's face was as calm as a lake. He activated the great overarching eternity immortal body and added a strand of fleshly immortal chi. The current Jun Xiaoyao didn't even need to use any great divine abilities. He simply pushed out with his palm. Wisps of Tao runes appeared in the sky. The wisp of immortal chi in his flesh shuddered too. Immediately, Jun Xiaoyao's palm wind became even fiercer, causing violent ripples to appear in the void. Bang! Jun Xiaoyao pressed down with his palm. Under the support of the immortal Deluo celestial body and the immortal chi of his physical body, two extreme powers. This palm was simply 100 times more powerful than any great divine ability. Boom! Wang Teng and Long Aotian flew back like a kite with a broken string. Their bones cracked, and they spat out blood mixed with their internal organs. Wang Teng and Long Aotian were both severely injured. Thump! The two of them crashed heavily to the ground. Long Aotian's Emperor Dragon armor was covered in cracks. Wang Ting spat out mouthfuls of blood, his face extremely pale. Despair. As proud as Long Aotian and Wang Teng were, there was only despair in their hearts. Zhang Xiaoyaro was so strong that he didn't even seem human. Why? Why would a monster like Zhang Xiaoyaro appear in this generation? Wang Ting was perplexed. He was already a monster himself, but he was nothing in front of Zhang Xiaoyaro. You don't deserve the title of young emperor. A divine chain of order shot out of Zhang Xiaoyao's forehead, turning into a golden dagger that slashed at Wang Ting's primordial spirit. Splat! Wang Ting's entire body fell backward. His primordial spirit had been shattered by the primitive Emperor Dao sword. Zhang Xiaoyaro finally retracted his gaze and looked indifferently at Long Aotian. It's your turn. Zhang Xiaoyaro raised his hand, the immortal qi of his physical body wrapping around his arm. With the immortal qi of his physical body, Zhang Xiaoyao's physical strength had broken the limit of 10 billion katis. Even a 10,000 zhong tall mountain would be pulverized by this punch. Ha ha! Zhang Xiaoyao, do you really think you're the chosen one? Long Aotian wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth, his expression ferocious, and his eyes filled with a hint of madness. Oh! Zhang Xiaoyao looked at him calmly. I, Long Aotian, am the chosen one. As soon as Long Aotian finished speaking, the black dragon-shaped ring on his finger suddenly emitted a ball of demonic black light. Then, a terrifying aura shot into the sky. It was as if the gates of hell had been opened, endless chilly winds surging. The pitch-black soul power condensed in the air, finally forming a tall demonic figure covered in black dragon scales. A terrifying aura burst out of it. Its aura was even stronger than ordinary 9 Heavens Supremes. It was even stronger than Demon Emperor Li Xin of the 8 tribes of the godly kings. This is... Zhang Xiaoyaro raised his eyebrows slightly, but his expression remained calm. As long as you kill this man, I'll agree to anything you ask of me. Long Aotian glared at Zhang Xiaoyaro with eyes filled with hatred. Don't worry, you're destined to meet me. Your enemy is only an ant in front of me, the demonic figure covered in black dragon scales said calmly. This aura doesn't seem to fit in with the 9 Heavens immortal realm. Could it be the lingering will of a 9 Heavens Supreme left behind by an expert from a foreign realm? Zhang Xiaoyaro said thoughtfully. Humph, you're quite smart. I'm the evil dragon emperor of the fallen dragon tribe from a foreign realm, the demonic figure said. I see, Zhang Xiaoyaro nodded. It must be the lingering will of the evil dragon emperor that was residing in the pitch-black evil dragon ring. Long Aotian must have found it. He had to admit that Long Aotian was quite lucky. Zhang Xiaoyao, prepare to die. Long Aotian was overjoyed after getting his revenge. Even though the evil dragon emperor was only left with a lingering will, Zhang Xiaoyao still had no chance against him. At this moment, on the other side, Wang Teng, who had been lying on the ground, suddenly struggled to get up. Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes flickered with astonishment. Wang Teng's face was still pale after he rose to his feet, but his gaze at Zhang Xiaoyao was extremely cold too. Zhang Xiaoyao, you've shown me what death is. You'll have a taste of it soon. Wang Teng's voice was filled with murderous intent. Interesting, didn't I already destroy your primordial spirit? Zhang Xiaoyao asked curiously. Hee hee. Wang Teng chuckled. His forehead suddenly emitted a glow. Following it, a broken ancient talisman floated in the air with a monarch aura. A broken monarch weapon? Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes flickered. The broken ancient talisman was able to protect Wang Teng's primordial spirit. It was beyond Zhang Xiaoyao's expectation. Wang Teng and Long Aotian were indeed quite lucky. They were able to find their own fortunate encounters in the Bronze Immortal Palace. However, it was fine too. Zhang Xiaoyao was only interested in harvesting the fattened leeks. Chapter 472. Zhang Xiaoyao, prepare to die. Wang Teng activated the broken imperial weapon talisman. This ancient talisman wasn't just for protection. When activated, its power was equally shocking. Even if it was only half of its power, it was enough to pose a threat to Zhang Xiaoyao. On the other side, the evil dragon emperor's remnant consciousness released by Long Aotian also charged towards Zhang Xiaoyao. Zhang Xiaoyao's protective ancient artifact was entangled by Wang Teng and Long Aotian's protective ancient artifacts. He couldn't free himself. In this situation, Zhang Xiaoyao seemed to be powerless. Today, I will witness your fall. Wang Ting's eyes shone brightly. You're finally going to die. Long Aotian couldn't contain the excitement in his heart. Jun Xiaoyaro had almost become his inner demon. If Jun Xiaoyaro didn't die, Long Aotian would definitely not be able to prove his Dao. In other words, if Jun Xiaoyaro didn't die, in this world, no one would be able to prove their Dao before him. Feeling the terrifying power of the evil Dragon Emperor's remnant consciousness and the broken imperial weapon, Jun Xiaoyao's expression was calm. Just as he was about to use his trump card to resist. In his spatial artifact, something began to tremble. Is this a protective talisman left by father? Jun Xiaoyaro was surprised. Before he left the eternal burial ground, Li Xin had given him a jade protective talisman. It was left behind by Jun Wuhui. Jun Xiaoyaro had kept it in his spatial artifact. Now that Jun Xiaoyaro was in danger, this protective talisman actually began to tremble. With a whoosh, the protective talisman flew out of the spatial artifact and floated in the void. Then, a vast light surged out like a tide. In the light that was bright enough to blind people, one could vaguely see a figure with a terrifying aura that suppressed the sky and dominated the universe. It's father. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes were deep. Although Jun Xiaoyaro had never seen Jun Wuhui before, that didn't stop him from sensing that familiar bloodline aura. His father, the white-robed god king Jun Wuhui, was a legendary existence. Even the remnant consciousness of the evil dragon emperor was greatly shaken when it sensed the terrifying might that enveloped the world. Even with his grand empyrean cultivation level, he felt like an ant before this figure. How can this be? How can Jun Xiaoyaro still have tricks up his sleeve? Long Aotian was flabbergasted. Not only did Jun Xiaoyaro have an ancient artifact to protect himself, but he also had such a method. On the other hand, Wang Ting's mind was in a daze. Jun Xiaoyao's tricks were endless. The blurry figure in the vast light didn't say anything. He just reached out a hand and suppressed the evil dragon emperor's remnant consciousness. The evil dragon emperor's remnant consciousness also erupted with extreme fluctuations. The void twisted, and a black evil dragon roared at the sky. However, before that indistinct figure, the black evil dragon was like a little chick that was suppressed by a single hand. Even the evil dragon emperor's remnant consciousness was suppressed. No, impossible. Who are you? The evil dragon emperor's remnant consciousness let out an unwilling roar before it was completely annihilated. Then, the blurry figure flicked his finger, and the damaged ancient talisman that Wang Ting was controlling was directly sent flying out of Wang Ting's control. Wang Ting also spat out a mouthful of blood. All his bones were shattered. Only then did the blurry figure stop. Then, he slowly turned around. Within the endless light, there seemed to be a loving gaze looking at Jun Xiaoyaro. Father. Jun Xiaoyaro murmured. To be honest, Jun Xiaoyaro didn't feel much about this father that he'd never seen before. He also didn't know where Jun Wuhui went or what he was doing. Before, the 18th ancestor and the others only said that they would tell him some of the truth when he turned 18. In the end, the blurry figure directly disappeared into the void. The amulet fell back into Jun Xiaoyao's hands. There was a line of small words carved on the amulet: "A gentleman has no regrets in his life." It was still shining brightly. Jun Xiaoyaro put away the amulet and turned to look at Long Aotian and Wang Ting. Long Aotian's face was pale. He clenched his fists and trembled all over. Who would have thought that Jun Xiaoyaro still had an amulet? That's the white-robed divine king, Jun Wuhui? Long Aotian's expression was extremely ugly. He naturally knew who Jun Xiaoyao's father was. Jun Xiaoyaro was simply a powerful second generation. What a waste. Wang Ting's eyes were bloodshot. This was the perfect opportunity to kill Jun Xiaoyaro. He missed it just like that. Since you've fattened up, then let me harvest you. Jun Xiaoyaro was too lazy to say anything more. He threw a 6 Paths of Reincarnation fist at Long Aotian. Long Aotian's face was pale as he quickly retreated. The evil dragon emperor's remnant spirit was his last trump card against Jun Xiaoyaro. Apart from this, nothing else could threaten Jun Xiaoyaro. If I had known, I wouldn't have entered the Bronze Divine Palace. Long Aotian finally regretted. He was obsessed with killing Jun Xiaoyaro. But this obsession ended up harming him in the end. But there was no medicine for regret in this world. No matter how long Outyen struggled, he couldn't escape death. He tried his best to activate his last trump card. The power of space erupted. He quickly moved, wanting to escape. As expected, you've obtained one of the 9 great heavenly books, the Space Book. Seeing Long Outyen's state, Jun Xiaoyaro was enlightened. Obviously, this was the Space Book that specialized in the path of space. Light surged behind Jun Xiaoyaro, and the wings of freedom appeared. The wings of freedom flapped and caught up with Long Outyen. Then, he used his finger as a sword and pointed at Long Outyen's head. Slash. Jun Xiaoyao's finger pierced through Long Outyen's head. Even his primordial spirit was crushed into powder. Zulong's forbidden first generation, Long Outyen, who possessed the qi of heaven and earth, was completely dead. Then, Jun Xiaoyaro turned around and came to Wang Teng's side. Wang Teng's bones had been shattered. His face finally lost its previous aloof indifference. Instead, it was replaced by fear. The fear of death. And this time, the broken ancient talisman could no longer protect his primordial spirit. No, Jun Xiaoyaro, you can't kill me. If you kill me, the Wang family will definitely not let this matter rest in the future. The entire celestial realm will be in turmoil. Wang Teng said in a trembling voice. Why do you all have to say this nonsense before you die? Can't you just shut up and wait for death? Jun Xiaoyaro shook his head slightly. He also pointed at Wang Teng's forehead. Slash. Blood and brain matter splattered. This time, Jun Xiaoyaro was careful and completely crushed Wang Teng's primordial spirit. Wang Teng, the young emperor of the Wang family of the north, who had been blessed since he was a child, had died, at the same time that the two of them died. In the outside world, beside the immortal ancient mirror, the elders of Zulong and Wang Yuanba of the Wang family of the north couldn't help but feel their auras go wild. Outyen. The elders of Long Outyen's bloodline roared to the sky. My son. Wang Yuanba's aura surged wildly. He couldn't help but shout angrily. Both Long Outyen and Wang Teng's life tablets were shattered. Everyone who saw this scene was stunned at first. Then, as if they had thought of something, their eyes were filled with shock. It can't be. Could it be that both of them are dead? The world is going to change. Chapter 473. The elders of many forces around the immortal ancient mirror were shocked. Their eyes were full of shock. Anyone with a discerning eye who saw this scene understood what had happened. Long Outyen and Wang Ting had died. One of them was the young emperor of the Wang family, and the other was the first of Zulong. Both of them were famous figures in the Huangtian mystic realm, but now, both of them had died. Geniuses are dying in the battle of the world. Is the immortal ancient the starting point of the battle? Many elders of the major forces sighed. Wang Yuanba couldn't help but look at the Jun family. The first possibility that came to his mind was that Wang Ting had been killed by Jun Xiaoyaro. What are you looking at? Jun Zhantian glared at him. He was not afraid at all. Although the Wang family of the northern land was also a family of the clan of the ancients, the Jun family was one of the 3 imperial families of the clan of the ancients. Master, please calm down. Wang Ting might not have been killed by Jun Xiaoyaro. Some elders of the Wang family hurriedly advised. Although they were also hostile to the Jun family, it was obviously not a good time to start a conflict with the Jun family. Even if there was a conflict, the Wang family would not be able to gain any advantage. On Zulong's side, the elders of Long Outyen's bloodline were all furious. Although Long Outyen might have died because of the Bronze Immortal Palace, they still felt that Jun Xiaoyaro had something to do with it. All in all, the death of the 2 geniuses had caused a huge uproar. Many forces present were talking about it. Was it really the son of God of the Jun family who killed them? Not necessarily. It could also be the killing intent of the Bronze Immortal Palace. Yes, in the Bronze Immortal Palace, even the Saint Lords would die, let alone the geniuses of the younger generation. Then, do you think the Son of God of the Jun family will follow in their footsteps? That is possible. Although the Son of God of the Jun family is invincible, it is only limited to the younger generation. In front of the strangeness of the bronze immortal palace, it is not enough. Many people were talking. After the death of Long Aotian and Wang Teng, they all thought that Zhun Xiaoyao's situation was not good. At this moment, within the bronze immortal palace, Zhun Xiaoyao also expected that the outside world would be in an uproar because of this. But he didn't care at all. So what if they were killed? The Wang family of the northern region and the lair of Zulong did not have the guts to deal with him openly. Next, Zhun Xiaoyao began to collect the spoils of war. After all, it was a fat and delicious leek. Zhun Xiaoyao picked up the evil dragon ring and examined it. There seemed to be some legacy resources of the evil dragon emperor inside. The evil dragon emperor was a supreme being expert of the foreign fallen dragon race bloodline. He most likely entered because of the bronze immortal palace's legends. In the end, he died and left behind a trace of his remnant will on the evil dragon ring, which was obtained by Long Aotian. Zhun Xiaoyao was not interested in the evil dragon emperor's legacy at all, but he still put it away in his spatial artifact. Zhun Xiaoyao was most interested in the 9 great heavenly books on Long Aotian. After searching for a while, he also obtained a dark golden scroll. As expected, it's one of the 9 great heavenly books, the Space Book. But why is there only half? Zhun Xiaoyao looked for a while and shook his head slightly. He was not too disappointed. After all, half a space book was also a great harvest. Zhun Xiaoyao was thinking that if he could gather all 9 great heavenly books, would he be able to recreate the immortal path? Since ancient times, there has been almost no one who has gathered all 9 great heavenly books. If all 9 great heavenly books are combined, what will happen? Zhun Xiaoyao was curious. He was not a collector, but the more 9 great heavenly books he had, the better. Now was not the time to study in the bronze immortal palace, so Zhun Xiaoyao also put away half a space book. Then, Zhun Xiaoyao activated the heaven and earth furnace again to refine the emperor dragon's blood in Long Aotian's body. It was safe to say that Zhun Xiaoyao had dug up every single piece of meat he could find, without wasting a single bit of it. Long Aotian's value was almost squeezed dry. As for the legacy of the ancient void dragon, Zhun Xiaoyao was not interested in it at all. Then, Zhun Xiaoyao once again plundered Wang Teng's treasures. Wang Ting had been lucky since he was young. He had obtained all kinds of treasures. But Zhun Xiaoyao was not interested in anything. After all, he had been treated the best since he was young. He had used all kinds of treasures. The only thing on Wang Ting that caught Zhun Xiaoyao's attention was the broken ancient imperial weapon talisman. Could this be an ancient emperor's weapon? Zhun Xiaoyao picked up the broken ancient talisman and looked at it. Only half of the ancient talisman was left. It exuded an ancient aura. In the center of the ancient talisman was the word tongue. No, this should only be half of a word. Could it be chaos? Zhun Xiaoyao pondered. Which ancient emperor had the word chaos in his name? Zhun Xiaoyao thought for a while, but did not have much idea. He played with the broken ancient talisman for a while and understood a little of its mysteries. It was this broken ancient talisman that protected Wang Teng's shattered primordial spirit. It's a good defensive ancient emperor weapon. If I get the complete ancient talisman, I might be able to recover my shattered primordial spirit, Zhun Xiaoyao thought to himself. A complete ancient talisman was equivalent to having an extra life. It was a priceless treasure. Zhun Xiaoyao kept the ancient talisman. After tidying it up, he waved his hand. The Tushi ancient emperor flame surged and burned Wang Teng and Long Aotian's bodies to ashes. As for the ancient weapons that they had taken out, Zhun Xiaoyao could not control them since they had lost the connection with their blood. So, he gave up on them. Now that I've dealt with these 2 ants, I can explore in peace. Zhun Xiaoyao set off again. Within the palace, everywhere they passed, there were still corpses everywhere. Zhun Xiaoyao heard the little girl's laughter again, which was as crisp as silver bells. Zhun Xiaoyao followed the sound of her laughter and went deeper. Finally, a bronze door appeared in the depths of the bronze immortal palace. This bronze door was tightly shut and looked extremely ancient. Even if Zhun Xiaoyao activated the ancient weapon, he could not break it open. Then, Zhun Xiaoyao noticed a circular groove in the middle of the bronze door. This is The bronze compass. Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes lit up. He took out the bronze compass and pressed it into the groove. In an instant, the bronze door that had been sealed for eternity finally opened slowly. Smoke and dust filled the air. Zhang Xiaoyao looked ahead. In front of him was a dust-filled palace. It was extremely spacious. Opposite him was a series of bronze steps. On the steps, there was a bronze platform. There was a wooden table on it. A grimace mask covered in dust was placed quietly on the wooden table. On the wall beside the wooden table, there was a yellowed picture scroll. There was a blurry figure in the picture scroll. The face of the man in the picture was handsome and as warm as the sun. He looked very much like Zhang Xiaoyao. That is. Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes flickered. Could the bronze immortal palace be related to the grimace woman? At this moment, there was a roar from the top of the palace. There was a vast expanse of energy that was as thick as a mountain and as dense as clouds. Every strand of energy was black and yellow in color, and it could crush mountains. This is the qi of all creation, Zhang Xiaoyao said in surprise. Chapter 474. The universal qi was also known as the black-yellow mother qi or the black-yellow qi. It was rumored that when the heavens and earth were first created, it was this kind of energy that created the heavens and earth, allowing all things to flourish. Therefore, this kind of energy was called the mother qi, which meant the mother of all things. The universal qi was also the rarest energy in the world, and it was an excellent material for forging emperor weapons. In the outside world, even a wisp of it was enough to make everyone fight over it. However, at this moment, the vast expanse of black-yellow qi in the bronze immortal palace was the universal qi. If outsiders saw it, they would definitely be jealous. Even with the Zhang family's heritage, there were only a few clouds of universal qi. However, there was a large expanse of it here. Logically speaking, Zhang Xiaoyao should have been overjoyed to see so much qi of all creation. However, he did not. Instead, his face was solemn. Zhang Xiaoyao had never believed in free lunches from the heavens. As expected, in the next moment, the ground of the entire palace suddenly rumbled. Lines of formation runes emerged, locking down the surroundings. This is bad, Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes flashed. He activated the broken ancient sword and slashed at the array. However, he could not break it. Even the ancient weapons can't break it. Zhang Xiaoyao frowned. Meanwhile, the thick cloud of universal origin qi above the hall began to descend. At the same time, endless murderous intent surged around the array. Its power was enough to make the galaxy tremble. This formation is definitely one of the most powerful formations in history. Zhang Xiaoyao's expression turned solemn, which was a rare sight to see. Even the Zhang family's great protective array was only slightly more powerful than this one. More importantly, this array seemed to be powered by the universal qi, which was a little terrifying. Its power could easily kill a supreme being. The light from the killing array swept over. Zhang Xiaoyao could not dodge at all. He could only use the three ancient weapons to protect himself. Clang! A killing light fell on the shabby bronze bell, and a crack appeared on it. It seems that these three ancient weapons can't hold on for much longer. Zhang Xiaoyao sighed. At that moment, even Zhang Xiaoyao felt that things were getting a little tricky. No wonder the bronze immortal palace is known as a forbidden place. If one is trapped inside, there is indeed no chance of survival. Zhang Xiaoyao thought to himself. As time passed, the myriad origin qi above his head also began to sink. Before long, they would drown Zhang Xiaoyao. Every strand of myriad qi was powerful enough to crush mountains and rivers. Under the pressure of so much mother of all creation, even an autarch's body would explode. Zhang Xiaoyao had the sacred body of the ancients. Coupled with the immortal celestial body of the Deluo and the immortal qi in his body, his physical body could be said to be invincible among his peers. Even the bodies of saints who had been baptized by the heavenly tribulation were far inferior to him. But in the end, Zhang Xiaoyao was only at the Tao God stage. Although his physical body was strong, it also depended on his cultivation level. If Zhang Xiaoyao were at the Holy Lord realm, then perhaps he wouldn't need to fear him too much. Right now, Zhang Xiaoyao was clearly in a life-or-death situation. Rumble. The myriad qi pressed down, as if a part of the universe was smashing down. Zhang Xiaoyao's physical body began to tremble under the immense pressure. Father's amulet is not moving. Zhang Xiaoyao pondered. Could it be? Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes flashed as if he had thought of something. Life is death, death is life. Putting myself in a desperate situation and fighting to live is a dead end for me. But it could also be a heaven-defying opportunity. Zhang Xiaoyao's eyes were very bright. He had long cultivated an invincible heart of the path and was not afraid of death. Sometimes, he just had to take a gamble. Crack. As time passed, the three ancient artifacts protecting Zhang Xiaoyao finally could not withstand the pressure and shattered with a crack. At the same time, the heavy myriad qi pressed down. Zhang Xiaoyao's entire body was drowned by the myriad qi. His physical body began to collapse inch by inch. Even the sacred body of the ancients could not withstand the pressure. However, Zhang Xiaoyao himself was very calm. So, this is what you call pain? Zhang Xiaoyao asked, trying to understand the feeling. Ever since he had transmigrated, he had almost never been injured. This was the first time. However, Zhang Xiaoyao understood that this was a life or death situation, but it was also a hope. Only by being reborn in death could one make rapid progress. Zhang Xiaoyao's physical body collapsed and then recovered due to the powerful qi and blood of the sacred body of the ancients. Then, it was shattered again and recovered again. This cycle was repeated. Every inch of Zhang Xiaoyao's muscles and bones were also being tempered by the myriad qi. Vaguely, the elemental elephant particles seemed to be trembling, as if they were about to be nurtured and transformed. In this cycle, Zhang Xiaoyao gradually could not feel his physical body. His physical body seemed to exist in the void, swaying back and forth. Sometimes it existed, and sometimes it was annihilated. At the same time, Zhang Xiaoyao felt that his eyelids were getting heavier and heavier, as if he was about to fall into a deep sleep. That was his primordial spirit, which was about to be annihilated under the pressure of the myriad qi. In the end, there was only a little spark left, so weak that it was almost unable to maintain its vitality. At the same time, in the outside world, where the Zhang family was located in the Emperor state. In her ancestral hall, Zhang Xiaoyao's life tablet shattered with a crack. Well, this is, in front of the ancestral hall, an old man who was guarding the hall sat cross-legged on a futon. When he saw this scene, his old face suddenly changed. Oh no, Son of God's life tablet shattered. Could it be? Thinking of this, the old man's eyes trembled. He took a deep breath and hurriedly sent a message. This was definitely a big deal, which would shake the entire Zhang family and even the Huangtian mystic realm. In just a moment, Zhang Zhantian and the other elders beside the immortal ancient mirror received the news through communication jade slips. With one look, Zhang Zhantian's old face trembled. He subconsciously cried out, Xiaoyao. In the area where the Zhang family was, all the elders' faces changed drastically, as if they had heard the most unbelievable news. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Could it be a mistake? Some of the elders of the Zhang family could not hold it in anymore. How is this possible? The Son of God can't be in trouble. There was a commotion in the Zhang family's area. This scene was naturally seen by people from other forces. From the looks of it, could it be that the Son of God of the Zhang family has fallen? That's definitely the case. Didn't you see Zhang Zhantian's face turn pale? Other than this, there is no other thing that could make them lose their composure. The Son of God of the Zhang family has really fallen. When the news was completely spread, all forces were in an uproar. If one were to ask who had been in the limelight and was the most talked about genius in the Huangtian mystic realm in the past decade or so, without a doubt, it was the Son of God of the Zhang family, Zhang Xiaoyao. He was definitely a legend of the younger generation. He could be said to be an insurmountable mountain, an existence that all geniuses looked up to. But now, the brightest sun in the Huangtian mystic realm had fallen. This kind of influence was extremely far-reaching. In a few days, the news would spread throughout the Huangtian mystic realm. Chapter 475. Reincarnation is part of the heavenly path. Who would the heavens spare? An elder from Zulong's side sneered, feeling extremely pleased. Zhang Xiaoyao is also dead. It's a pity that my son can't be brought back to life. Wang Yuanba was still in a bad mood. Zhang Xiaoyao's death was at most a price for Wang Ting's life, but Wang Ting still couldn't be brought back to life. Other than that, although the people from the other forces didn't dare to show anything, they were still very happy deep down. Especially those forces who had a grudge against the Zhang family. One of them smiled and breathed a sigh of relief. As for those forces that had no enmity or grudges with the Zhang family, they were actually relieved. The reason was simple. With Zhang Xiaoyaro around, the geniuses from the other forces could only be relegated to supporting roles. No force wanted their geniuses to be supporting roles. They all wanted them to fight for the mandate of heaven. In this era, with Zhang Xiaoyaro around, the other geniuses couldn't even dream of fighting for the mandate of heaven. No, that's impossible. I'm going to break this immortal ancient. Zhang Zhantian's emotions were extremely unstable. As an elder of the Zhang family, he was originally a calm person. However, now that the life and death of his grandson were at stake, it would be strange if Zhang Zhantian could remain calm. Zhantian, calm down. Maybe there's some misunderstanding. An elder tried to persuade him. I also hope that there's a misunderstanding, but my grandson's life tablet is broken. Zhang Zhantian's eyes were slightly red. Generally speaking, a broken life tablet meant that one had died. There was no way that could go wrong. The great ancestors haven't made a move yet. If Xiaoyaro is really dead, there's no way they're not going to do anything, an elder tried to persuade him. Zhang Zhantian finally calmed down a little. It made sense when he thought about it. The 18th ancestor and the others valued and doted on Zhang Xiaoyaro no less than his biological grandfather. If Zhang Xiaoyaro was dead, the 18th ancestor and the others would definitely do something. However, it was true that his life tablet was broken. Now, even Zhang Zhantian was a little conflicted and didn't know what to do. At the same time, in the ancestral hall of the Zhang family in the Emperor State, two figures stood in the void and looked in the direction of the immortal ancient world. One of them was a grey-robed old man, while the other looked like a 10-year-old child. However, his eyes were filled with the aura of an old man who had experienced many vicissitudes of life. They were none other than the 18th and 16th ancestors of the Zhang family. Xiaoyaro is teetering between life and death. You can assume that he is still alive, but you can also assume that he is temporarily dead, 18th ancestor said calmly. This is Xiaoyao's tribulation, but it is also Xiaoyao's fate. Let's see if he can survive this. 16th ancestor looked like a child, but his tone was very old. Xiaoyao's life has been smooth since he was born. It's time for him to face a challenge. If he overcomes it, he will break out of his cocoon and transform into a butterfly, shocking the entire Nine Heavens immortal realm. The 18th ancestor's eyes flickered with anticipation. If, and I'm just saying if there's a 1 in 10,000 chance that Xiaoyaro won't be able to pass. 16th ancestor paused. Don't you know what's going to happen? 18th ancestor chuckled. The bronze immortal palace seems to belong to that ruthless guy. He won't be able to become an immortal after 9 reincarnations, but it doesn't matter. If worse comes to worst, we can just break into the immortal palace. 16th ancestor said casually. I didn't expect Xiaoyaro to be related to that person. Fine, as long as it's beneficial to Xiaoyaro, we won't interfere, 18th ancestor said after pondering. They did not interfere, but continued to observe. However, almost all the factions around the immortal ancient mirror knew that the life tablet of the son of God of the Zhang family had shattered, and that he had fallen. Meanwhile, the geniuses in the immortal ancient world were unaware of the death of Zhang Xiaoyaro and the others. Xiaoyaro, Jiang Xingyi and the others were troubled and worried. Zhang Xiaoyaro had asked them not to risk their lives by entering the immortal ancient mirror, but he did not care about his own life. While the situation was changing in the outside world, in the bronze immortal palace, Zhang Xiaoyao's consciousness was gradually blurring, as if he was about to sink into darkness. The last bit of primordial spirit spark also seemed to be about to be annihilated. At this moment, the broken ancient talisman suddenly released a ball of light, enveloping the last bit of Zhang Xiaoyao's primordial spirit. Previously, even when Wang Ting's primordial spirit was shattered by Zhang Xiaoyao, he relied on the broken ancient talisman to recover. Now, the broken ancient talisman reacted again, taking the initiative to protect the last bit of Jun Xiaoyao's primordial spirit. Jun Xiaoyao was hanging on by a thread. Although his physical body was being destroyed inch by inch, his bones were as bright as gold and jade, releasing vitality and incomparably sturdy. Jun Xiaoyao's divine immortal bones had formed a complete divine immortal body. Even under the suppression of the myriad qi, it could not be completely shattered. Jun Xiaoyao's physical body was repeatedly shattered and reassembled just like that. The myriad qi was originally the best material for forging imperial weapons. It was also a sacred object that tempered all tangible substances. Now, Jun Xiaoyao's physical body was equivalent to an imperial weapon being tempered by the myriad qi. If Jun Xiaoyao could recover in the end, the strength of his physical body would definitely be at a super abnormal level. Although Jun Xiaoyao's primordial spirit was protected by the broken ancient talisman, it was still about to lose consciousness, as if it was about to fall into a deep sleep. At the last moment, the system's mechanical voice suddenly sounded. Ding! You have arrived at the Bronze Immortal Palace. Do you want to sign in? Sign in. Jun Xiaoyao's primordial spirit emitted a weak fluctuation. Ding! Congratulations to the host for sign in successfully. You have received an 8-star rare reward, the Myriad Qi Cauldron. As the system's voice sounded, Jun Xiaoyao's consciousness finally sank completely into darkness. At the last moment before sinking into darkness, he seemed to see an extremely heavy bronze cauldron frantically absorbing the myriad qi. The entire Bronze Immortal Palace fell into a dead silence. There was not a single sound. Time passed little by little. At a certain moment, a hoarse voice like that of a male duck suddenly sounded in the palace. That guy died in the myriad heaven transformation formation? He's still a breath away, but this old man is also very curious. A little guy in the Tao divinity realm can actually retain a wisp of vitality. How rare. An old voice replied. So what? Isn't he still trapped in the immortal palace? He might be like this for the rest of his life. Dangmaro, a cripple, an old blind man, you guys are really blind. A charming woman's voice suddenly sounded. Slut, what are you talking about? This old man is blind to begin with. You are discriminating. An old blind man, don't talk. Listen to what this slut has to say. Another old voice said. A cripple, don't you think that young man looks a little familiar? The charming woman said. Familiar? What are you talking about? This old man doesn't understand. An old blind man said. No, now that you mention it, he does look a little familiar. A cripple's voice was filled with surprise. Then, he said, I remember now. Isn't he exactly the same as the person in Master's portrait? Could this person be Master's fated person? An old blind man was shocked. Damn, could it be that we killed the fated person by mistake? The male duck voice was also stunned. Are you guys stupid? Why aren't you guys thinking of a way to save that little brother? The charming woman hurriedly shouted. Fortunately, this person's primordial spirit and physical body are both extremely monstrous. He can actually maintain a wisp of vitality in the myriad heaven transformation formation. If it was anyone else, they would probably be completely cold. An old blind man said with a sigh of relief. Right, an old blind man, didn't you detain that immortal ancient spirit? Hurry up and give it to this little brother. The charming woman said. This old man left it for myself. An old blind man was a little unwilling. Don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and hand it over, the charming woman urged. Okay. I'll hand it over. An old blind man said helplessly. Chapter 476. A ball of white light like the sun suddenly rose from the void inside the palace. It was the immortal ancient spirit that was suppressed inside the Bronze Immortal Palace. The immortal ancient spirit emitted a vast soul fluctuation. An old blind man's voice echoed in the void. If I can refine this ball of immortal ancient spirit, my primordial spirit will definitely reach a higher level. An old blind man, that's enough. Master asked us to guard the Bronze Immortal Palace for countless years, waiting for the fated one. Now that the fated one has finally arrived, you almost killed us, the charming female voice scolded. Luckily, we're not completely dead. Otherwise, we would have made a huge mistake, a cripple said. The ball of immortal ancient spirit sank into the chi of all creation and was slowly absorbed by Jun Xiaoyao's primordial spirit. This guy's primordial spirit is the legendary primordial spirit of 3 lifetimes? An old blind man was extremely shocked. Interesting. Maybe this kid's Tao of Soul will be even stronger than yours in the future, the duck-like voice said with a mischievous smile. What are you talking about, you parrot? My Tao of Soul is definitely the best among the 9 heavens supreme realm, an old blind man said. This guy's flesh is the sacred body of the ancients, and he even has a bone of supremacy. A cripple was extremely shocked. Kami, did this kid save the 9 heavens immortal realm in his past life? He has such a monstrous talent. The parrot was also shocked. Even supreme existences like them were extremely shocked. One could only imagine how monstrous Jun Xiaoyao's talent was. Alright, let's not talk about it anymore. It seems like this little brother is most likely the fated one. I wonder how long he will sleep for before he wakes up. He's really handsome. The charming female voice sighed and clicked her tongue. Bitch, don't mess around. This is the fated one of our master. If you dare to cross the line, the consequences, hehe, an old blind man chuckled coldly. Can't I even say a few words? Being together with you 2 old men and a parrot is my bad luck of 8 lifetimes, the charming female voice complained. What are you talking about? Have you ever seen a powerful and handsome parrot like me? The parrot said arrogantly. You're just an idiot. A cripple mocked. The entire bronze immortal hall became a little more lively because of these voices. However, Jun Xiaoyao couldn't hear it. His entire body sank into the myriad chi cauldron to undergo refinement. His primordial spirit continued to absorb the immortal ancient spirits. Jun Xiaoyao began to transform in all aspects of himself without being noticed. It was obvious that this period of time would not be short. After arguing for a while, the few voices in the bronze immortal hall returned to silence. Obviously, they were used to this kind of dead silence. After a long while, an old blind man's faint voice was heard. So many years have passed, and so many eras have passed in the outside world. I wonder where our master is now. Don't worry, if this little brother is really the fated one of our master, he will definitely find our master, the charming female voice sighed softly. Why are you all so sad? We can finally leave this immortal hall, the parrot called out in a duck-like voice. Didn't our master say that if we find the fated one, we have to listen to him? A cripple said. A cripple, are you saying that we, the superior supremes, should listen to the orders of a little kid in the Tao God realm? An old blind man said. This is our master's order. Do you dare to go against it? Besides, this little brother is shockingly talented. I'm afraid he has an extraordinary background, the charming female voice said. Are you obeying orders? You're just lusting after that kid's body. An old blind man shouted. I don't deny it. The charming female voice giggled. The entire bronze immortal hall fell into silence again. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Jun Xiaoyao, Wang Teng, and Long Outyan, who had entered the bronze immortal hall, did not come out. Now, in the immortal ancient world, many geniuses believed that the 3 of them had died in the bronze immortal hall. No, Xiaoyao will be fine, Jiang Shengyi comforted himself. Jiang Luoli and the others were also in disbelief. In their eyes, Jun Xiaoyao could create miracles with a wave of his hand. Even the bronze immortal hall should not be able to trap Jun Xiaoyao. Let's wait patiently. Cousin Xiaoyao will always surprise us in the end. Jun Lingtsang and the others were not too worried. However, in the outside world, many people saw that Jun Xiaoyao and the others did not come out for a month and knew that they were dead. As expected, it seems that the son of God of the Jun family is completely dead. His life tablet was shattered before, and now he is nowhere to be seen. There is no other way but to die. What a pity. A genius who could have shocked the world is dead. What a pity. If the son of God of the Jun family was here, the Huangtian mystic realm would be able to take the first place on the Emperor Road. Yeah, There are 9 Emperor Road in the 9 Heavens mystic realm. There are powerful geniuses from other mystic realms on each road. If the son of God of the Jun family represented the geniuses of the Huangtian mystic realm, he would be able to take the first place. What's the point of talking about this now? He is dead. Sounds of discussion could be heard from all directions. On the Jun family's side, the faces of the people were not looking good. Although the great ancestor of the Jun family did not do anything, it was an undeniable fact that his life tablet was shattered. They were all waiting for the result. The other forces were also waiting for the result. They did not dare to make a decision until the last moment. After all, Jun Xiaoyaro had created many miracles. However, such a miracle did not happen. 3 months later, the entire immortal ancient place suddenly trembled. It was a sign that the immortal ancient place was about to close. The immortal ancient place is about to close. Lord Grimm, Jun Lingtsang, and the others were all shocked. Jun Xiaoyaro had not come out yet. At this moment, the sequences of the Jun family began to feel a little confused. Jun Xiaoyaro was the backbone of the sequences. If anything happened to him, it would undoubtedly be a huge blow to the sequences of the Jun family. Jiang Shengyi's delicate body trembled slightly. She gritted her teeth and resolutely flew towards the bronze immortal palace. "Don't go!" Jun Lingtsang shouted when he saw this. If something happened to Jun Xiaoyaro, Jiang Shengyi would only be courting death if she went. However, Jiang Shengyi was not afraid at all. "Brother Xiaoyaro." Jiang Luoli also flashed out. Yang Qingying, Wu Mingyu, Bai Mai and the other women who were dead set on Jun Xiaoyaro also flashed out, wanting to enter the bronze immortal palace. Jun Xiaoyao's charm was so great that they were willing to give themselves to him. However, the bronze celestial palace in the void also let out rumbling and trembling sounds. Then, it slowly disappeared into the void. The bronze immortal palace disappeared. "No." Jiang Shengyi's voice was like a cuckoo crying blood. Jiang Luoli and the others who were related to Jun Xiaoyaro were also stunned, as if they had lost their souls. Jun Xiaoyaro had died. Chapter 477. The bronze immortal palace had disappeared. Jun Xiaoyaro, Long Aotian, and Wang Teng, who were inside, disappeared as well. Almost all the geniuses in the immortal ancient world saw this scene. It's really over. The bronze immortal palace has disappeared. The son of God of the Jun family has fallen. Dead. The 3 people who entered the bronze immortal palace are all dead. Long Aotian and Wang Ting being dead is one thing, but the son of God of the Jun family had the chance to become an emperor. Even he has fallen. Many geniuses sighed. Jun Xiaoyaro has really fallen? On a mountain peak, Ji Qingyi's hair danced in the wind. Her limpid eyes looked at the place where the bronze immortal palace had disappeared. She was lost in thought. Was Jun Xiaoyaro, the man who had been invincible among his peers ever since he was born, really dead? Ji Changkong shook his head and said, "I told you. As one of the 7 incredible worlds, the bronze immortal palace is extremely dangerous. Anyone who enters it will definitely die." Ji Changkong looked calm, but he heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. The mountain that had been pressing down on them had finally disappeared. On the other side, the ancient freak of the Yi family, Yi Nantian, also muttered to himself, "It's a pity that a genius who had the chance to prove his Tao has fallen. However, it gives the others a chance to breathe." Did something really happen to little brother Xiaoyaro? Xiao Moxian and the others were still in disbelief. After all, Jun Xiaoyaro had created too many miracles. No one dared to say that Jun Xiaoyaro was dead until the very end. That's right. The bronze immortal palace has only disappeared. It doesn't mean that brother Xiaoyaro has fallen. Lord Grimm comforted. That's right. We believe in the young master. Jun Shuahuang and the others were also excited. Jiang Shengyi and the others calmed down a little when they heard this. At this time, the immortal ancient world continued to tremble. Patterns began to appear in the sky. Those were the laws of the immortal ancient world. They began to reject the living beings from the outside world. The immortal ancient world was about to close again. After a few days, light began to surge around the geniuses, and the space around them began to ripple like water. Their figures were instantly teleported out of the immortal ancient world. Compared to the number of geniuses who entered the immortal ancient world, the number of geniuses who came out had obviously decreased by more than half. Just the immortal ancient world alone was already so intense. It was hard to imagine how cruel the Emperor Road would be when the time came. After all the geniuses had been teleported out, the entrance to the immortal ancient world closed completely. The immortal ancient world and the bronze immortal palace had completely disappeared. After all the geniuses came out, they went to find their respective forces. When they returned to their respective forces and heard the news that Zhun Xiaoyao's life tablet had shattered, they were all shocked. What? The life tablet of the Zhun family's son of God is really broken? Doesn't that mean that he has really fallen? I didn't expect it to be true. I thought that the son of God of the Zhun family had the ability to come out. What a pity. Some heaven's favorites shook their heads, feeling that it was a pity. There were also some who were mocking and ridiculing in their hearts. As expected, Zhun Xiaoyao is a human, not a god. How could he survive in the bronze immortal palace where even supremes could die? He was arrogant and reckless. In the end, he lost his life. These people only dared to mock in their hearts. They did not dare to say it out loud. After all, the Zhun family had not left yet. What, after Jiang Shengyi learned that Zhun Xiaoyao's life tablet had shattered, she could not stand still. Jiang Luoli and the other girls' hearts also trembled. Suddenly, they blacked out and almost fainted. If it was before, they still believed that Zhun Xiaoyao could survive. But now, the fact that his life tablet had shattered was an indisputable fact. Zhun Wanjie, Zhun Shuahuang, Zhun Zhanjian, and the other sequences all had red eyes. They could not believe it. Yi Yu, Yang Qingying, and the other followers could not accept it either. Even Princess Longji realized that she was not as relaxed and happy as she thought she would be. Instead, he had mixed feelings about it. It could be said that Zhun Xiaoyao's death had a much greater impact than the death of Wang Teng and Long Outyen. He was a young king who was qualified to dominate the Emperor Road. Some of the sequences of the Zhun family did not believe it. They even asked Zhun Zhantian and the other elders. They were all silent and did not say a word. This time, the result was confirmed. Those who were related to Zhun Xiaoyao could not accept it. Zhun Xiaoyao's enemies, on the other hand, were secretly gloating. The Zhun family. Wang Yuanba glanced coldly at the Zhun family. Although Zhun Xiaoyao was dead, the pain of losing his son would not be appeased. Wang Yuanba could not take it lying down. In addition, the powerhouses of Zulong, Wanhuang Spirit Mountain, Qilin Ancient Cave, Fallen God Palace, and the Sacred Sect were also unhappy. Almost all the geniuses under their command were killed by Zhun Xiaoyao. The powerhouses of these forces looked at each other and saw the hatred for the Zhun family in each other's eyes. Zhun Xiaoyao's death was not enough to appease this hatred. Vaguely, a storm that could sweep across the entire Huangtian mystic realm was brewing. The immortal ancient world was completely over. However, the waves had just been stirred up. The news of Zhun Xiaoyao's massacre in the immortal ancient world shocked everyone. In addition, the commotion that Zhun Xiaoyao caused in the eternal burial ground finally spread to the Huangtian mystic realm. He killed the 10 minor kings of the burial ground and killed the ancient tyrant body Chu Tianba. Many buried emperors of the burial ground died indirectly because of Zhun Xiaoyao. In the end, Zhun Xiaoyao directly sealed the burial ground again. Each and every one of these incidents was enough to shake the entire immortal realm. In the end, they were all caused by Zhun Xiaoyao alone. This was simply too shocking, making one's eyeballs pop out. I originally thought that it would be good if the son of God of the Zhun family didn't die in the burial ground. In the end, he did so many things. Such a genius ended up dying in the bronze immortal palace. It's regrettable. After hearing so much shocking news, Zhun Xiaoyao's death was undoubtedly even more shocking. No matter how talented you were, as long as you didn't fully mature, there was a risk of dying. Zhun Xiaoyao's death could be said to have shaken the entire Huangtian mystic realm. However, the Zhun family didn't say anything about this and maintained a rare silence. Many people thought that the Zhun family was really hurt this time. Some people even thought that this might be the starting point of the Jun family's decline. With Jun Xiaoyao's death, in contrast, the rise of other geniuses. For example, there were rumors that a descendant of an ancient emperor in the Wanhuang Spirit Mountain seemed to be about to awaken. The Archean royalty, the ancient Crocodile Lake, and the descendants of the crocodile ancestor were about to awaken. There were also rumors that Zulong and the Wanhuang Spirit Mountain seemed to have worked together to create a genius with the dragon phoenix body and wanted to dominate the emperor's road. The reincarnation of the sword demon of the Yi family also seemed to be showing signs of coming out of seclusion. Some people of the Yi family said that the reincarnation of the sword demon seemed to have cut off his past and reconstructed his true self. His talent was unimaginable. He was a real great emperor, not just a figure of speech. In addition, there was also the ancient freak Jade Buddha of the Little Western Paradise who had the legendary body Buddha heart. As soon as he was born, he subdued the first daughter of the Mahamyuri's lineage. All in all, the emperor's road was about to open. Geniuses from all walks of life rose like stars. The son of God of the Jun family, who was originally like a bright sun, fell sadly. This made many people sigh. In troubled times, heroes rose and fell. Time was like a knife cutting down geniuses. Even someone as dazzling as Jun Xiaoyao would eventually be forgotten by others one day. Chapter 478. In the blink of an eye, it had been a year since the immortal ancient world was closed. In the past year, the Huangtian mystic realm had undergone great changes. The spiritual qi between heaven and earth had suddenly become denser. All the blessed enclaves and paradises were revealed. Many old people who were stuck at a bottleneck suddenly realized that they had broken through unknowingly. The changes were shocking at first, but they soon realized what was going on. The spiritual qi has awakened. The Emperor Road is about to open, an elder of a major force exclaimed. In the past, there were always two signs before the Emperor Road opened. One was the opening of the immortal ancient world. The other was the spiritual qi of heaven and earth had awakened. Of course, the spiritual qi awakening was not a qualitative change, but a quantitative one. It was not very useful for those who were already at the top of their cultivation. However, it was very helpful for those who were below the 9 heavens supremes. It was even more helpful for the young geniuses who were full of vitality and potential. Some people said that it was a kind of reciprocation from the will of the 9 heavens mystic realm. It was to improve the strength of the younger generation so that they could compete for the heavenly will on the Emperor Road and protect the immortal realm. Under the background of the spiritual qi awakening, the strength of the younger generation of geniuses began to skyrocket. The ancient freaks who were sleeping in various corners of the immortal realm also sensed the changes and woke up one after another. In an instant, the entire Huangtian mystic realm was filled with dazzling stars. Many geniuses streaked across the sky like comets. In the past, the heaven god realm was considered the absolute top of the younger generation. However, under such circumstances, many geniuses with a strong foundation began to break through to the heaven god realm. There were even a few geniuses who began to break through to the Tao god realm. Most of these geniuses were ancient freaks who had awakened, or the descendants of ancient experts who had extremely powerful bloodlines. Some old people even speculated that under such circumstances, there might be geniuses of the pre-saint level appearing in a year or so. Many people thought of Jun Xiaoyao because of this. With Jun Xiaoyao's monstrous talent, if he did not die in the Bronze Immortal Palace. Under such circumstances, it was almost certain that he would break through to the pre-saint level. In the past year, the Jun family had been keeping a low profile. There was no news about them. Many people believed that Jun Xiaoyao's death would cause the Jun family to be depressed for a long time. As for Lord Grimm, Jun Lingtsang, and the other geniuses, they were also working hard on their cultivation. All of them had made great progress in their cultivation. I believe that Master will not fall. Yi Yu, Yang Qingying, and the other followers still firmly believed that Jun Xiaoyao would return one day. Surprisingly, Princess Longji didn't return to Zulong after the immortal ancient world closed. Instead, she followed Jun Mulan and the others to the Jun family. This made many people very surprised. On second thought, Princess Longji had already fallen out with Long Outian in the immortal ancient world. If he were to return to Zulong, he would feel somewhat uncomfortable. Zulong's Kang dragon also wanted Princess Longji to go back, but she refused. Princess Longji meant that although Jun Xiaoyaro had died, her promise would not change. Otherwise, her Dao heart would be damaged. However, only Jun Mulan and a few others knew about this. Jun Xiaoyaro and Princess Longji's promise was only limited to the immortal ancient world. Therefore, no one could guess what Princess Longji was thinking. Time gradually passed. At a certain moment, all the cultivators in the Huangtian immortal realm seemed to have heard a terrifying explosion, as if the sky had exploded. At that moment, all the cultivators raised their heads and looked at the sky of the immortal realm. The same thing happened not only in the Huangtian immortal realm, but also in the other 8 immortal realms. Then, under everyone's astonished gaze, a vast ancient road seemed to have materialized from the void, extending all the way to the depths of the universe. It was an extremely ancient path. It was a path filled with geniuses' blood. It was also a path that would leave a mark in history. The Emperor Road had opened. Boom. In the next moment, the 9 Heavens immortal realm was in an uproar. On the Huangtian immortal realm's side, countless geniuses rose into the sky from various regions like carps crossing the river. Each of the geniuses' aura was very powerful, far more powerful than before the revival of spiritual qi. Many ancient warships, flying ancient beasts, and mystical mounts all rose into the sky, carrying the geniuses toward the Emperor Road. Everyone in the world had the dream of proving their Tao. Their blood was boiling, and they wanted to make a name for themselves on the Emperor Road. They wanted to leave their names in history and be praised through the ages. Some people saw the descendants of ancient families that had been hidden from the world for many years appear. Descendants with the bloodline of ancient races appeared. There were even descendants of Archean ferocious beasts that broke out of their eggs. Their ferocious aura shook the world. Every single one of them had a shocking background. Of course, some famous immortal forces in the Huangtian immortal realm also sent their descendants, wanting to expand their territory on the Emperor Road. Some people saw a young figure in the depths of the Wanhuang Spirit Mountain, riding a fire phoenix. It's an ancient freak from the Wanhuang Spirit Mountain. I heard that he's a descendant of an ancient emperor. Over at the ancient Crocodile Lake, an astonishing ferocious aura rose into the sky. A pitch-black crocodile rose from the ancient lake, and with a swing of its tail, a mountain range collapsed. It's the descendant of the crocodile ancestor. Some of the ancient races exclaimed. On the peak of a mountain, a beautiful woman in a sapphire blue peacock dress looked up at the Emperor Road with a glimmer of hope in her eyes. As long as I follow Master Arhat, I won't have to worry about not reaching the end of the Emperor Road. The woman murmured, and a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She was the genius who had been subdued by the ancient freak of the Little Western Paradise, Jade Arhat. She was the first daughter of Mahamayuri, and her bloodline was noble and powerful. Other than that, in the Yi family of the clan of the ancients. On top of a lone peak that was thousands of feet high, dressed in black, the handsome reincarnation of the Yi family's sword demon, Yi Guchen, slowly stood up. His aura was incomparably deep, and his eyes were no longer as ancient as before. Instead, they were extremely clear. Yi Guchen had completely cut off his past and reconstructed his true self. Compared to before, he had undergone a shocking transformation. His aura was unfathomable, and even a saint would feel weak just by looking at him. It's time. Yi Guchen raised his head and looked at the Emperor Road in the sky. He raised his hand and suddenly pulled out the Emperor Slayer that was stabbed into the ground at an angle. That sword had been stained with Emperor blood. Boom. The moment Yi Guchen pulled out the Emperor Slayer, a terrifying aura erupted. A terrifying sword chi that could shake the stars in the sky swept across the sky. At this moment, the Yi family was alarmed. Many of the elders in the family were outside Yi Guchen's seclusion area to check on him. Even the ancient freak of the Yi family who had awakened in the immortal ancient world, Yi Nantian, was shocked. As expected of the reincarnation of the sword demon. Although he has cut off his past, his talent and cultivation have become even more unfathomable. His comparable to Jun Xiaoyaro from before. Yi Nantian was shocked. As an ancient freak, Facing Yi Guchen made him feel like he was meeting his senior. That sword intent sent chills down one's spine. Yi Guchen's fingers gently caressed the Emperor Slayer, and the sword's chime shook the 9 heavens. Old friend, I thought you would have met a good opponent. What a pity. Yi Guchen shook his head slightly. The person he was referring to was naturally Jun Xiaoyao. They had agreed to meet again, but in the end, it was difficult for them to meet again. I, Yi Guchen, use this sword to seek defeat. I hope that the Emperor Road will not disappoint me. Yi Guchen carried the Emperor Slayer on his back and stepped into the sky. The reincarnation of the Yi family's sword demon, who had been in seclusion for a long time, had finally set off. The entire book. Chapter 479. Previously, some busybodies had selected the 4 most popular geniuses in the Huangtian mystic realm. The son of God of the Jun family. The young emperor of the Wang family. The first Zulong. The reincarnation of the sword demon of the Yi family. In the blink of an eye, only Yi Guchen was left among the 4 most popular geniuses. Needless to say, it was a pity. Just when Yi Guchen came out of seclusion, everyone was shocked. In Hong State, where Zulong was stationed, there was also a shocking aura erupting from the depths of the mountains. Many of the far ancient races nearby sensed the terrifying aura and couldn't help but cast their gazes over. A figure rose into the sky like a flaming meteor. What was shocking was that there was a shadow of an ancestral dragon and a divine phoenix circling around the figure. Set off by the ancestral dragon and the true phoenix, the figure was like the emperor of dragons and phoenixes, exuding a terrifying aura. The pressure of the realm that was faintly emitted had reached the great completion of the Tao God stage, and was only a step away from being a sage-to-be. Gosh, such a powerful realm. Is that the dragon phoenix body created by Zulong and the Wanhuang spirit mountain? Rumor has it that this dragon phoenix body has refined the complete blood of the ancestral dragon and the divine phoenix. Its potential is limitless, and its talent is definitely not weaker than the son of God of the Jun family. Just as many people were communicating with each other through divine consciousness from all directions. The young figure wrapped in the shadow of the dragon phoenix said indifferently, Long Outian has become a thing of the past. Princess Longji is willing to be a mount. She is also a disgrace to Zulong. Feng Tiange and Feng Luofei are also useless. That ancient freak, Huang Jiuyan, is barely acceptable. The reason Jun Xiaoyao could be famous in the past was because I, the dragon phoenix, was not born. This figure was the dragon phoenix body, the dragon phoenix. The dragon phoenix stepped into the sky, and a dragon and phoenix appeared under its feet, carrying its body across the sky, leaving behind countless shocked gazes. It could be said that with Yi Guchen, the dragon phoenix, and other top geniuses coming out of seclusion, countless geniuses from all over the Huangtian mystic realm began to head towards the imperial road. In the Jiang family of Qingju, on top of a cliff, a peerless beauty in snow-white clothes stood against the wind. She was like the faint glow of a new moon, like a jade tree piled with snow. The gentle breeze ruffled the snow-white hair on her temples, dazzling her picturesque face. It was Jiang Shengyi. However, unlike before, Jiang Shengyi's black hair had turned into a head of snow-white hair. That was because after learning that Jun Xiaoyao's life tablet had shattered, Jiang Shengyi's black hair had turned white overnight. Like black silk in the morning, snow in the evening, Jiang Shengyi's head of black hair was as white as snow, adding a touch of poignant beauty to her flawless face. Jiang Luoli appeared behind her. The only thing that remained unchanged was his height of 1.5 meters. What changed was that slightly haggard and delicate face. Jiang Luoli had also suffered greatly in the past year. She had become haggard because of her husband. Sister Shengyi, the imperial road has opened. The clan elders have asked us to set off, Jiang Luoli said. Jiang Shengyi was silent. After a long time, she suddenly opened her mouth and said, I like being carefree. Jiang Luoli was slightly stunned. She didn't expect Jiang Shengyi to suddenly choose this time to confess. Jiang Luoli also showed a touch of bitterness and said, Sister Shengyi, no matter how stupid Luoli is, she shouldn't be so slow. She had guessed what she should have guessed. Many things didn't need to be said out loud. Luoli, I'm sorry, Jiang Shengyi murmured. The wind blew, blowing her snow-white hair. It was a poignant beauty. Seeing Jiang Shengyi like this, what else could Jiang Luoli say? She smiled bitterly and said, "What's the use of saying this now? Let's wait for Brother Xiaoyaro to come back." Luoli believes that Brother Xiaoyaro will never die. Yes, I also believe that Xiaoyaro won't die. So, I'm going to the Imperial Road to become stronger. I can't be a burden to Xiaoyaro. Jiang Shengyi's eyes were resolute. As a carnate Taoist embryo, she had been greatly improved during the spiritual Qi revival. Now, her cultivation was also in the Tao God realm. She was not too far away from the sage to be. Looking at Jiang Shengyi, Jiang Luoli's big eyes also had a touch of sadness. Compared to her, who was mischievous, unambitious, and useless, short legs, Zhun Xiaoyaro would prefer a gentle, understanding, and big sister like Jiang Shengyi who would support and encourage him from behind. I really can't accept this. Jiang Luoli clenched her fists. For the first time, determination appeared in her big eyes. Jiang Luoli also wanted to work hard to become stronger. She believed that there would be spring for her short legs too. The Jiang family's geniuses also stepped onto the Imperial Road. The Zhun family's master Grim, Zhun Lingcang, and the other sequences also stepped onto the Imperial Road. Yi Yu, Yang Qingying, and the others also set off. Princess Longji, who had been staying in the Zhun family, also set off. Zhun Xiaoyao, will your name be heard in the Imperial Road again? Princess Longji murmured. She actually didn't quite believe that Zhun Xiaoyao would die. How could a man as calculating as that put himself to death? There were many people who thought the same as Princess Longji. Many people thought that if Zhun Xiaoyao really died, the Zhun family's reaction would be too cold. Many people were looking forward to the day when they might hear Zhun Xiaoyao's name resound in the starry sky again. Time continued to pass. Almost a year had passed. Many geniuses had begun to make a name for themselves on the Imperial Road. As for Zhun Xiaoyao's name, people gradually stopped mentioning him. However, some observant people also noticed. If Zhun Xiaoyao was still alive, he should be 18 years old now. Just the right age for his coming-of-age ceremony. Sigh, if Zhun Xiaoyao didn't enter the Bronze Immortal Palace, he might have become a quasi-saint by now. An 18-year-old quasi-saint. Just thinking about it is scary. Yeah, walking on the Imperial Road as a quasi-saint, even if he can't sweep the Imperial Road, he will definitely be a big shot. What's the point of talking about this now? But I heard that the Zhun family seems to have the intention of holding a coming-of-age ceremony for Zhun Xiaoyao. What? Really? He's dead, and they want to hold a coming-of-age ceremony? As the news spread, many cultivators in the Huangtian mystic realm were shocked. Was the Zhun family possessed? Why would they hold a coming-of-age ceremony for a fallen genius? Then, another shocking piece of news was revealed. Some people said that the treasure vault of the demon sect of reincarnation seemed to have appeared. At this moment, many people understood that the Zhun family had been hiding something behind the scenes. On the surface, they used Zhun Xiaoyao's coming-of-age ceremony as a cover to attract the attention of many forces in the mystic realm. In private, they were thinking of ways to monopolize the treasure vault of the demon sect of reincarnation. After all, the demon sect of reincarnation was an immortal force. The treasure vault left behind by them was naturally priceless. Not to mention, there were rumors that the imperial weapon of the demon sect of reincarnation, the 6 Paths of Reincarnation disc, was hidden in the treasure vault. Even the wealthy Zhun family couldn't turn a blind eye to the treasure vault of the demon sect of reincarnation. As for why people thought that the Zhun family had the ability to obtain the treasure vault of the demon sect of reincarnation, it was because the successor of the demon sect of reincarnation, Wang Chuan, was still in the Zhun family. Only he could find the correct location of the treasure vault of the demon sect of reincarnation, open the door, and obtain the resources inside. This was obviously not what the Archean royalty and other hostile forces wanted to see.